Have to.
And we're live.
Indeed. It is now perfectly
Hey,
started.
Marcus, how are you doing? Gotta make sure this is... All right. I can talk to chat, and I can talk to these guys separately. All right, there we go.
Hello, welcome. Make sure, just don't talk over each other and all that stuff. Look at that. I like this, all green screens. Beautiful.
It is the perfect setup. It is.
Actually, right now, every week we're trying to improve this podcast, and this is perfect. This is amazing.
I mean, peaking on week 2 is pretty damn awesome.
Exactly, right? Look at that. All right. Welcome, everybody. The second episode of the Barons Club. Today, we actually got some big Barons right here in the house. We got Enko, we got Sam. Enko, probably the master of unidentified gear and all data that you ever need in your life is here. You got Sam, the one and only Baron, with all his guides on YouTube. We're going to get into some topics today. Of course, it's an economy debate. It has to be. But we'll start off with introducing both of them. Everyone knows who you two are, but it's a thing we kind of do here on the Barons Club. Kind of just give a brief introduction of our guests, special guests. Someone's saying we turn the music down a bit. Sure, I could do that. It's still, a work in progress podcast. All right. So, Mr. Enko, if you'd like to just give a, 1-2 minute, introduce yourself. Who are you? I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but just what do you do? What do you love to do in the game as a streamer?
Hey guys, everybody. I'm Enko. Most of you guys know me. My Twitch, my Twitch is Enko63, where all three of us are streaming on our own channels right now. As far as what I do in game, I started out with this game and during the head start, played Guild Wars 1 prior to this. Mainly did endgame. I guess my guild's a voice and serves off semi-hardcore content. We started off with LOD, Legion of Doom from Guild Wars 1, moved into Guild Wars 2. When that guild kind of fell apart, just raided with friends. Now I'm raiding with Win with the Axons guild mainly, and then so we're doing our raid content through that, and then hard stock, so do some raids with that. And the majority of the time I spent doing trading post stuff and making gold. I'm currently number 1 on efficiency with just under 1.5 million account value. And right now I'm just chugging along, just playing raids and doing trading post stuff.
Nice. And Sam, how about you? What's going on with you lately?
Okay, so just to give as well some sort of chronological introduction, I started playing Guild Wars 2 really seriously about a year after release because I was very busy studying at first. So I binged the game super hard. 2013, I wanted to get into hardcore PvE, and that led into me becoming part of Snow Crows, which I stayed in for about 3 years. Alongside that, I got interested in the economy as I was studying business. The finance classes got me all riled up, and I started paying attention to what was happening in the game, listening to the big names, one of which was already Enko. Like he wrote a lot on the official Guild Wars 2 forum, which was one of the places I got my info from. And going onwards with all of this, I kept playing PvE on the side while focusing more and more onto the economy content. And eventually, today, pretty much everything I'm doing is that economy content on my YouTube channel, while Twitch is more for the PvE aspect of the game, where I'm just enjoying that raid and strikes content.
Nice. So interestingly enough, so Sam, you've actually already been kind of a content creator before Enko and I actually even started. I think maybe at least a few years before us. So I'll start with Enko. Enko, what kind of got you into maybe getting into being kind of a streamer, content creator? I'll get into maybe asking you specifically about Guild Wars 2 in a bit, but just what got you to just want to be a streamer in general?
Let's see. I actually started streaming like 4 or 5 years ago, but it was kind of on and off. It was mainly streaming raids and fractals with LOD. Like I would stream our raid cells and stuff like that. But it was kind of sporadic. It was kind of on and off. Wasn't streaming that often. It's kind of something we felt with it because it was always like, hey, the people in my group will watch VOK with me streaming this stuff. probably like this past April, I decided like, hey, let's just start streaming regularly. So I started streaming like 3 or 4 times a week. Stream our raids. When we don't raids, I would just stream random other stuff I'm doing, either pug raids or TP stuff. But yeah, it's been something that I've been wanting to do more steadily for a long time. I actually had a stream set up, as I said, like 4 or 5 years ago. I just didn't really use it for quite a bit of time. But this past year, once I started streaming regularly, I bought a green screen. Actually, I had the green screen for like 2 years, but it literally just sat on my living room floor, like unused, because I just wasn't streaming. I bought a new camera. We started getting new stuff set up for the stream. So like now, my stream setup, like I bought the computer I built this time was specifically built with intending to stream. So probably spent about $4,000 or $5,000 getting this setup going. And then but yeah, there's still stuff to do. There's still stuff ready to go for it. And we're gonna keep going with it.
Nice. Yeah, I can actually relate to that because that's basically what I did when I got into streaming. I was just like, if I'm gonna get into streaming, I'm gonna kind of do it the right way as much as I could. And the same thing, bought a lot of things that I think maybe some of them were great benefit, but maybe some a little too early as a streamer to purchase. I just realized I muted myself. Nice. Oh yeah, no. So I was saying is that like I had the same kind of thing like Enko, where I went in and spent a lot of money on the setups just as a streamer and everything. Um, yeah, for you, Sam, that's been kind of a different story in terms of like starting as a content creator, at least seriously, right? Because Enko, like you mentioned, started years early, but then really it's now is the time where he's kind of picking up on it. But you've been doing this for a while, right? You've been posting guides and everything. So when was it for you that you decided like I want to be a content creator for, well, just in general?
Okay, well, for me it was quite different because the time at which I started, making content, I was still a student with no financial capacity to buy better gear and get really into quality streaming, as well as the timing in which I was doing it was basically when Guild Wars 2 Twitch was at its prime, in my opinion, which is, it's debatable. That was the summer of 2014, and most of the big streamers were PvE people. We had Nike doing dungeon tours every day, as well as some other members of DNT providing all the PvEs. We had Purple Miku going all night long, goating around in Aura or soloing dungeons. And we had a bunch of other people who just, went around the day streaming parts. Basically, at that time, the simple fact that you were part of a guild that was perceived as being good in PvE was good enough to bring in the viewers. And if you were just a little bit entertaining, you could afford to have literally the shittiest setup. And by shittiest setup, I am being very honest. I was streaming from an average gaming laptop from 2012. As a microphone and headset, I had like the cheapest one from Logitech, which was serving both the purpose of being the headset and the microphone. And beyond that, I had like an extremely basic camera that couldn't even go to 60 FPS. It was more about what you were able to do and the kind of circle you were in, more than the quality of your stream, which is what is happening today. Like everyone has very good setups, has very good gear. You're competing with people who are already not necessarily established in the community, but established as being quality content creators, which is where the difference is, in my opinion. And once I was, just started streaming, like I would stream dungeon tours every day and get about, 80 to 100 viewers for it. I just transitioned into YouTube stuff because some of my streams were just me making gold doing dungeons or farming or starting some flipping. And people were just like, can you like explain? That is when I realized I should put some of that on YouTube. So yeah, that's it for the beginning.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, definitely we all here kind of have this similar interest. Guild Wars 2, which also brings me which also brings me to my next point. Can't English here. So when was it? Because I've heard from Enko a lot of times, but for other people, what was it for you, Enko, that like you were playing Guild Wars? Like, what's kind of like your brief history of getting you into the game, and since then, what's been your focus on Guild Wars 2 mainly?
Let's see. So I played Guild Wars 1 about 6 months after launch. My roommate was actually playing it. We were actually playing City of Heroes first, and then my roommate switched over to Guild Wars, and then he quit after like 4 months and gave me his account. And then that's the account I used for the entire time until up to 2012. From there, I just went into Guild Wars 2 and just continued on with it. So that's what got me in Guild Wars. So I've been with ArenaNet almost since the launch of Guild Wars 1. So yeah, it was like 4 or 5 months late, but I've been sticking with them. So that was back in 2004, I want to say. Yeah,
2004.
So it's been 17 years with ArenaNet.
Yeah, maybe just a thought, you should just tell our ages maybe so that people can like separate what generation we're in. When Enko started playing Guild Wars, I was 10.
That's actually true.
There's a little bit of a difference in like when I was 10, I was playing Pokemon, guys. I wasn't playing Guild Wars.
I feel so old.
It's not about being old. It's like you're like
when
old
Guild
enough to
Wars
play
1,
an
like
MMO.
2004.
I was in college. I was a freshman in college.
Oh boy.
Oh really? I was like 2004. I was in like 5th grade or something.
Oh my gosh! So I'm like 8 or 9 years older than you guys.
Something along these lines, yeah. More or less.
You're the boomer in this conversation here.
It's the same. It's the same way and win. I'm so much older than all of you.
I mean, no, you're more experienced than all of us. That's the way you should put it forward.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, wait a minute. So that means you were playing Pokemon when Guild Wars 1 came out in 2004?
Yeah.
Okay. I was 10 when Pokemon Blue and Red came out. I was the same age as Ash Ketchum when Pokemon first came out.
Like when I first booted Pokemon,
was that before or after 1995? Because anything before
that was 1995 exactly in Japan. That was 1995. Oh boy!
It came out the year I started middle school. So I remember bringing my original Game Boy, the black and white Game Boy, to like school to play it, like hiding inside my textbooks to play like during class and stuff like that.
Oh man!
This gigantic thing that took 4 AA batteries that only lasted for like 5 hours.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, do you remember the stress of the light starting to flicker and you were mid fight and couldn't save? Because I remember that. But yeah, so yeah.
At the end of that, probably. What about you, Sam? When did you get into Guild Wars or Guild Wars 2 specifically?
Well, I actually didn't even touch Guild Wars first of the name, even though I had like some friends who were talking about it. Mainly, like one of my best friends at school, like her brother was really into it, and she actually played a lot of Guild Wars. And she was like, Sam, maybe one day you should try that out, because we were playing Pokemon together, and her brother was just like, to me, he was the true gamer. He played Age of Mythology, he played Guild Wars, he was the big boy, right? And then I was just really into single player games until I met one of my closest friends actually in the late 2000s. That makes me feel old now saying it like this. And that guy was really into MMOs, so we played a lot of Korean grinders, and by a lot, I think that in a year we maxed out characters in 6 different games. Like, we were really playing hardcore in MMOs. And then at some point he was like, you know what? Guild Wars 2 is coming out, and all these French YouTubers are giving it a very good review. Because mind you, I was still playing games in French at that time. Like, I was very far away from the international scene. I was just like, yeah, sure, let's try it out. So we just get the game. I played it for exactly like 1 month with them, and then I had to study so hard. I took a year-long break. And I restarted it in the summer of 2013. As I said earlier, we played around like 2-3 months together, and then I was just hooked as hell on the game. And I was like, okay, never am I dropping this. I just kept playing hours upon hours. I think something like 8-9 hours a day. It was really part of my life. So yeah, that's when my Guild Wars 2 craze started. Without having ever touched Guild Wars first of the name, I made an account like 2 years ago, on which I haven't even finished character creation.
Wait, for Guild Wars 1?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Also, we're just like 8 or 9 hours. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say how many hours I was playing, but...
Yeah, I'd rather not either.
Yeah, it was...
So you didn't get to play it in its heyday kind of thing. I would definitely say I missed playing Guild Wars 1 when it was active. For me, I actually started playing it like around the time of its release. I think like my friends were they got to beta test it, and I remember like a friend coming to school and like, hey, there's this new game, and at the time I was just playing RuneScape. That was my MMO, and World of Warcraft was just about to come out, but I was also wanting something else to play. And my friend's like, there's this game called Guild Wars, and I'm like, yeah, sure. It was like 15 of us from school playing the game. We made the guild and everything, and maybe 8 months into the game, they all quit, and I was the last one playing till today. So,
oh god,
I've been with Enko on this. I've been on Enko on this one. I've been 17 years with this company, some capacity as a player.
Yeah,
I played. Funny enough, I actually played WoW and Guild Wars 2 simultaneously, but I quit WoW after 2008. So yeah, I decided to stick with one, and I ended up choosing Guild Wars.
Yeah, World of Warcraft. It was a decisive, distinct decision on why I didn't play that game. It was completely catered to the things that I would tend to get hooked on and most likely addicted to, and I probably would not have graduated college or made it into the Navy if I played WoW. Because so prior to Guild Wars 1, I played Diablo 2 when I was up through high school and then to college. And it was one of those games that I grinded so much. Like I had every single unique and every single set item in the game, except for one I-95 item that was impossible for me to get. But I stopped playing that when I got to college because the network at there would not allow me to connect to Battle.net. And they deleted my accounts every 90 days of inactivity. And now Diablo 2 Resurrected has been announced, and I'm very sad that all my accounts are gone. But yeah, if I had played WoW, considering how many hours I was playing Guild Wars 1 and like City of Heroes in college, if I was also playing WoW, yeah, I wouldn't have graduated. I would not. I probably would have dropped out my first year.
It's got this addicting thing to it. It's got this addicting thing, and it's also because it is a subscription-based game. So when you pay, you need to make the most of your money. So it's like you're losing out if you're not playing the game.
Yeah.
Other games,
COH was a subscription-based game too, and I was paying for 4 accounts at the time.
Oh, I remember having an account in City of Heroes, but then it was a little sad when they closed it.
Because
I found DC Universe. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, but I think to close my the thing that kept me going, I guess, for that was this game. I don't know if you know it, Sam. DC Universe. It was like an online MMO based on DC comic heroes.
You mean this game?
Oh, he does. He knows it. Yes, exactly that game.
Unopened collector's edition box for it. I never actually played it. I just bought it.
Oh my god. You ever gonna show us your collector's thing?
What, all the collectibles I have?
Still, yeah.
I probably need to set up the Twitch webcam or the Twitch camera on my phone to do that, so I can move around my house. It's kind of hard to.
As a YouTube video, I was suggesting something you could do for your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I can do that at some point. I don't have as many as other people because I actually didn't spend that much money on collectibles per se. Like I set up a display case this past year for it, but it's not as many as a lot of people would probably think.
On the other end, I know that you thrive with your cooking skills though, which is literally something entirely different than having collectibles. Unless you have collected things like Game Boys or stuff like that. I'm wondering actually, does a lot of people keep that stuff till now? Because I don't have any of the stuff from the 90s.
So I still have an original Game Boy. I had 2 original Game Boys, a Game Boy Color. I have every Game Boy system all the way up through like the current ones, except for like the collector versions of them. I have like the initial like version 1 of each of those. I still have an 8-bit Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, a Genesis, a Masters, a TurboGrafx 16s. I have an old Atari somewhere that was my dad's originally. Still, My mom really wants me to, like, it's at my parents' house right now. They really want to throw it out, but it's just like, no. But
Don't let them. Just don't let them.
yeah, I have every system from Atari onwards except for an N64 and a Dreamcast, I think.
That's a long time gaming. On my end, I did keep a bit of stuff. Yeah, like I got my first Game Boy from my grandpa when I was like 6 years old. I first had like a very basic Looney Tunes game on it, and I quickly bought Pokemon Blue, and it was a ride, like an actual ride. Got myself a Game Boy Advance with more Pokemon on it. Then I got like some Castlevania stuff on it, which is a game series I'm still very hooked onto. Like I was really more into single player games than MMOs until very late in my life. On the side, I had like a PlayStation, which was the perfect console for like a kid living in the mid countryside and wanting to bring people home after classes, right? Play a game of Star Wars, play a game of I don't know, World Rally Championships and stuff like that. Transition towards the Wii, and after that I got like a 360 from Xbox, and it just kept going on like that. I got like a DS, then a 3DS, then a PlayStation Portable, a Switch now. Like I just kept everything. Like my mom was very adamant about keeping some of that, saying, you know, when you're gonna have kids, when you're gonna be like 30 or so, you're gonna want to show them that stuff. Because at that point, they will have virtual reality, they will have augmented reality, they will have all of that shit. And you just gotta show them that Game Boy Color that had like 10 pixels for the whole screen. You just gotta show them that.
All right.
Yeah, kind of going with that.
Somebody in my stream suggested I show you guys the console I took when my Xbox Series X and my PS5 showed up. Because I did a comparison shot of like the sizes of all the different systems. So I'll post it in the group chat if so you guys can see it, and then I'll show it on my stream if you guys want to show your stream that stuff too. But yeah, that's in Discord now.
Okay. And actually, I'm gonna check it out on my phone.
Yeah, I don't want to share screen on it because it'll screw up our
yeah, it's gonna kill the entire setup. Don't do that. Oh man. Oh man. Oh yeah. You weren't kidding when you said you had all of these. Boy.
So this is only from the Wii 360, or actually I guess the PS2 is the oldest one in that shot.
Yeah, like you have a PS2, I recognize it. I had the same one, man. It's the one on the rightmost. You have like PS2, then PS3 on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all
the memories of that.
Yeah, those are all the ones I have at my house right now. The rest are at my parents' house, which I need to get before they throw out.
Wow, is actually trying to stream the picture. Oh boy, that's crazy.
Yeah, I just did a display capture and threw it on OBS and then brought it up on my screen, so that way it didn't screw up Discord.
It's really crazy.
Not unfortunately, I guess this is kind of nice because the PS5 can play all the previous PlayStation games, so I can actually
even PS1.
I know it can play back to PS3. I haven't tried the PS2 on it yet, but it's supposed to be backwards compatible with everything.
I mean, PS2 could play PS1, right?
But yeah, it's the first
PS2
console.
Can play PS1.
First console that was actually backwards compatible. So, and then the Xbox Series X can play any Xbox game.
That's actually great. Like them doing that is good because I had to emulate so many of my games as I got rid of the console systems. That was kind of meh.
So for me, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with all my consoles now because I have 5 Xbox 360s, 2 Xbox Ones, like 2 PS4s. I have a PS4 Pro and a normal PS4. So it's like, well, crap, I have all this extra hardware. Like, what am I going to do with it?
Like, you've got opportunities for a giveaway, man.
Yeah,
you could probably give it away, or you could just, make a collector's room in your house.
Yeah, I might set up a display, and then I might set up some AV setup so that they can all hook up to a TV and work. I actually have kind of a complicated AV setup on there because all my consoles can also go to my computer for a capture card, so I can stream console games on it like while they're hooked up to my TV, and like I don't have to change anything. I just got to turn the console on, and it'll actually go to the right source. So there's a lot of cabling in the back of that TV that's just like, probably
You're gonna need a room. Honestly,
Yeah.
you need a room for that stuff. Yeah. All right, so not to go too much off topic, just to switch us back because we do have a lot to discuss soon as we get into the whole economy debate. What's everyone looking for in the stream? Just to touch briefly before we get into more specific stuff, what got you? And of course, everyone knows this, but just to let it out, what got you guys more interested in Guild Wars 2? Like, what was your personal interest in Guild Wars 2? And that's what's been fun for you recently in the game, or since you started playing Guild Wars 2, and starting with Enko.
So Guild Wars 2 specific. Well, I mean, this just came out of playing Guild Wars 1, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess like the things are keeping me in the game. Want to get that account value up. Most of my stuff is account bound. I like raids. I like high end raids where you're pushing for times, pushing for like to always improve. Constant improvement has always been my goal for like everything. I like to collect a lot of stuff. That's probably what kept me through Guild Wars 1 because I collected all the armors, I collected all the skins. Guild Wars 2 is similar, except we have a wardrobe now, so it's mainly just wardrobe unlocks. But
Still going for that wardrobe, huh?
So what else was the question about? Like, what are we doing right now in Guild Wars 2?
I just like what besides that, like like, what's maybe keeping you interested in the game now? Maybe what's something that you like always love to do in the game anyway? So yeah, just interests.
Yeah, trading posts. I want to get my wallet gold. I eventually want to reach the 200k cap, which means I need to stop spending gold on gems and stuff like that. But yeah, there's that goal. There is raids, as I said. Right now in game, what I mainly pretty much spend all my time doing is raids and trading post stuff. Like that's mainly it. Finish up World vs. World. I finally finished up what I need for Conflux, so we'll get that done. But yeah, raids, trading post, and then collecting stuff. So collecting stuff is what drives all the other content in the game for me.
I can clearly see that, with your life collections. What about you, Sam?
Well, I mean, originally, what got me hooked on the game is what kept me in it. Like that was the PvE aspect of things. So I was just playing PvE, enjoying it. Dungeon tours were a daily thing, So that's what actually kept me into the game, and then it became replaced by doing raids, by doing strikes, by doing fractal. I actually took some breaks, which I think was healthy, because if you're just playing the same game nonstop every day, your mind kind of wanders sometimes. So I took a few breaks, and what made me come back each time were the people I know who are still playing it. That's the first thing I should say is that over the years, I've made friends, multiple ones, that I keep going back to ever so often. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, the economy. Like when I got into the economy, there were a lot of sources of information. There were a lot of channels, there were a lot of ways you could get to know stuff. And I quickly figured out that about 80 to 90% of them were, I don't know, kind of average, just get rich quick schemes. I didn't like that, and I was like, okay, I wanna like level the game a bit, make something that's qualitative. And I also did that to learn more about the economy from my own gains in real life. So really, that's also one thing that kept me coming back to the game. I was like, okay, I actually enjoy making, informative guides, quality guides. So even if I would stop playing the game, I think I would still try to cover that side of the game to show people.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I forgot to mention too, spreadsheets.
Yeah, I mean, like spreadsheets.
Excel is great.
Spreadsheets are a drug. I'm not pretending I'll ever quit.
But yeah, I
inject himself in spreadsheets.
I probably spend more time. Well, besides raids, I probably spend more time working on spreadsheets on Guild Wars 2 than I do actually playing Guild Wars 2 at the moment. So, but it's.
I think I've spent more hours AFKing map than actually anything in the game because I just have like 50 tabs opened up in the background, and that's actually a reason why I never answer people in the game because I'm not even in the game. I'm actually outside doing other stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Like, there's always been that interest, or at least three of us, and I know there's a lot of other players here who have had that interest in earning gold or what it is to do with the economy of the game. Um, whether it's actually like trying to make something out of it or just understanding the economy of the game. So it's the same for me. I played the game at least from Guild Wars 1. Um, not maybe as a trader all the way, but in Guild Wars 2, that was basically the thing that I love to do and what kept me in this game. And of course, at sometimes using that goal to maybe manipulate some game modes, which is not very well received. Um, Other than that, I think it's been fun. I always like to stay in tune with the economy because, like Sam said, it's really things that you will use and apply in real life anyway. Just learning how to manage your income somewhere, virtual or not, it really does apply to real life. Thank you, Sam, by the way, for the tier.
Yeah, I just
subscription. I love you.
realized I had that to give.
Nice. Yeah. All right. So to get more in line with the economy, let's talk about the current state of the game, right? It's 2021, right, and we're getting ready for the expansion. And you guys recently noticed that they've been making some very different, like a whole 180 decision on some of the items they've been putting into the game or some of the balances in the economy that they've done recently, specifically the January economy patch that came out 2 months ago, right? What do you guys think about that?
Well, let's pull up the patch notes so we if we want to go over that, I guess.
Yes.
It was the January one, right? You said that?
Yeah.
It's January patch notes, yeah.
Okay, January 19th. So, what changed in January? Spirit Shards. So, for people who weren't paying attention in January or don't know, the Spirit Shards, they removed those as drops from champion loot bags. That was one thing they did. They also added that the HOT stats and the POF stats, which were previously untradeable, were now tradable. They had to fix a couple things because not everything was added correctly. But for the most part, pretty much all of the stats from Hot and POF are tradable now. So Vipers, for instance, that was not previously tradable. So the easiest way to get Vipers gear was actually just to do raids with the power class and then get Ascended gear and then you get Vipers on that. Because the exotic Vipers was not worth the craft. So yeah, just get Ascended gear from another source and then stat swap it. But that was the big change that they did with that. It was honestly a change that probably should have happened like 3 or 4 years ago. And the Spirit Shards things, I don't know. I think time will still tell on the effects from that. Because Spirit Shards are so easy to come by that removing those as a source, it's like you're still going to get a ton of them in game. Like if you do raids or fractals, you're getting a ton of Spirit Shards all the time. If you're doing Wordless World, if you're doing anything, you get, as long as you're playing the game and you're not just sitting like AFK in the Mistlock Sanctuary like certain infusion people do. Yeah, you'll just be getting Spirit Shards. That's why playing the game. So I don't really think that's that big of a deal. The infusion changes. So they increased the drop rate on Chalk Egg Sacs from Garant. They increased the drop rates on Festive Confetti Infusions from the Choya event after the Casino event in Crystal Oasis. That's right, map, right? I don't do infusion maps, so I don't really know. They also increased... that is Crystal Oasis, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then they also significantly increased the drop rate for the Connor infusion from the chest. Not that many people do the Connor infusion anyways, because you have to get the keys from 4 different events. So we haven't really, the price has dropped, but honestly, the price of Connor infusions dropped because Cassiano stopped buying them. If we want to be honest about it, he was the only one that was paying like 80k for each one. I've middleman for 2 in the last month that were both traded for like 30, 35k. So the drop rates have increased. So other people are getting them, but there's not enough in the game right now to really kill off the price for that. Confetti infusions are already dropping in price. Like it was already around 15k at 4 wins, and was dropping steadily since then. So, and then this came out, and then people that had them kind of just panic sold, so that now it's under 10k. And then the Garant or the Chalk 8 stack infusion, same thing, except it's a little lower. Though I did see somebody trying to buy one for 9,000 gold yesterday. So those are the big economy issues that happened. Though I don't really consider those things that big of an impact to the actual economy because most people aren't going to trade for infusions. I think the bigger thing that's happened is with T5 and T6 mats. I think that's actually what's changed.
I also say the spirit shards themselves, but the thing with spirit shards is that only affects the maps that were only dropping that stuff for you, right? Because if you run, for example, the LS4 farm train, or if you run HOT trains, like you're getting spirit shards also mostly because of the XP, not because of the bags. So on the grand scheme of things, yes, you maybe lose a few maps that did offer it in the champ loot bags, but most of those maps weren't worth the time anyway. In general, farming is not really the best method, but if it was your only method or one of your methods which you prefer to make money, you still have a lot of other maps and options to get spirit shards. I don't think it's too big of a hit. It just limits a few maps. So that change you're saying that we'll see in a few months, it will take maybe a year or two for us to even see the change. There's a lot of spirit shards in the economy.
Just side note, I just got told by one of my viewers that we are muffled on your stream, so you might need to turn up the Discord audio on your end.
Is it?
You guys sound fine on my stream, but they're saying that Sam and I are muffled on yours.
Can anyone here in this stream confirm? I hear them fine. Interesting.
Okay, maybe that's weird. But yeah,
okay, there might be. It could be them. It could be on a little bit, not much. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of spirit shards in game. My only point is that we make so many spirit shards anyways that, like, I don't. Because okay, so where do you get the champ bags from? You get them. A lot of people were getting those from the meta events, which you get XP from anyways. So and it was only a chance to drop from the champ bags. The people that were farming for like 4 champ bags for the stuff, like the spirit shards, yes, we're gonna extra benefit. So yeah, they're gonna have less spirit shards now, but I think that they would probably have enough spirit shards still to cover all of the needs that people have. So I don't really think that's going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, if I may actually add something onto that, the issue isn't necessarily with the production of spirit shards and how many you can get per hour doing a specific activity. It has more to do with the way that people spend spirit shards. What we're having right now is basically going to end up being the same issue as the Mystic coins were back in time, in a sense. Back then, you swam in Mystic coins. There were a few copper on the trading posts because we had so many of them, not many uses for them, and like whenever you needed to get some of them, you could just buy them on the TP, right? Right now, they're super expensive. And what we're going to have with the Spirit Shard is going to be something that's going to be akin to that, because people do not consider opportunity cost when using the Spirit Shards. They're like, I need tier 6 materials. I'll convert. Oh, I'm going to make a new skid. I'll use my Spirit Shard. Oh, I'm making a legendary. I'm going to spend on Spirit Shards. The thing is, using them at the same speed is going to be an issue, because at some point, their own generation of Spirit Shards won't be able to keep up with their way of spending them, especially if they have been raised, to speak, in the casual way of whenever you need gold, just forge cores into lodestones, tier 5 into tier 6, make a legendary, just to spend your laurels, etc. It's always the same tips that come out and about. If you need quick cash, you do that. But these people right there are going to end up being the people with no more Spirit Shard within a few months, a year, something like this, because the way they farm them won't keep up. Like, you spend 200 Spirit Shards to make just one Gift of Mastery. 200 Spirit Shards, that's not like 10 hours of farming. That's more than that. So people will take longer to achieve their means.
True, I do agree with that. Though,
But the
after
thing
that,
is, I think we won't see that shift. We won't see that shift until maybe a year out from now, because I still do think
Yeah.
there's a lot more supply than you go
There-
around and
there
ask
are
someone
massive
how many spirit shards do you have. There's people who talk about 20,000 spirit shards, like, and they have no idea what to do with it. And we only know what we have in maybe exchange and overflow. But I do think there's an oversupply that we won't really see this shift until way later.
I mean, that is a possibility for sure. But in my opinion, that's one thing that RNA decided to do, so as to ensure that spirit shards, retain a value, that people realize at some point they're worth something more than a measly like 10 silver profit, per forge or something like this. I think that there is a decision to revalue some currencies, among which the spirit shards, and hopefully it's going to keep going that.
So I'm going to liken this to a previous currency that had limited means to generate gold from. It got nerfed heavily, and we haven't seen anybody really do anything about it. Karma. So Karma, at one point, we were actually getting really, really close to having a perpetual cycle of gold with Karma. For the people that didn't know about, so the Orion jewelry boxes. You would spend Karma in those boxes, and you would get T6 orbs. You get orbs out of those, and you would get and you get cores and lodestones out of those also. They also dropped Karma pots. Karma pots used to be affected by the Karma buffs. Okay, so I did that a lot. You could convert Karma to gold at a pretty regular rate at that. There was a slight loss on that, and then if you ran all the Karma buffs in the game at the time when you opened all those pots, you would get like 90% of your Karma back with how much Karma gain I had. So with AP, the concern was because AP, you can eventually get high enough Karma return on your account that you would be getting more Karma back than you were spending on the pots. So they nerfed it. Pots no longer affected by the Karma buff. Okay, so have we had a change with that? What's actually affected Karma after that? Nothing much really, because not a lot of people are doing that. Spirit shards, yeah, a lot more people do spirit shard conversions. But after that change came out, the prices people were actually charging like for spirit shards actually dropped. Like, because there was what I think this did was it drew attention to spirit shards, and a lot of people realized like, oh crap, I have a lot of spirit shards. What can I do with them? So the supply, the actual supply on spirit shards being traded went up. So because there were so many people willing to do T5 to T6 conversions for people, like to be competitive, the prices dropped. I think, and yeah, we're seeing this from Overflow. I think some of it with Overflow was the change also where we weren't there was a long time rule that there were certain things that prices were set. T5, like spirit shards, are no longer set in price. So a lot of people were starting to undercut other people. So I actually think spirit shard value was being inflated by Overflow by saying that you shall charge this price for spirit shard conversions. And once that went away and it became more of a free market, other people started undercutting other people, and it started dropping a lot because so many people had readily available supplies of spirit shards that, to keep up, and the demand didn't match it. So to make their sales, they had to undercut other people. So I do think that we were seeing a bit of the price of a price floor being maintained by Overflow for this, because if you compare the prices to the efficiencies chart, like that thing's actually pretty accurate. Like Silver's one that came up with those results, and I verified them, and they actually match. The profit you get per spirit shard if you do it yourself is way, way higher. So a lot of all this did was draw attention to people that, hey, look, spirit shards can be used to convert to gold. That's what I think that patch note really did, which is why I think that the spirit shards went down in price. Now, if ANET did something that started costing a lot more spirit shards, like if they released Gen 3 weapons, like legendary weapons, and we had to spend the 200 spirit shards you were talking about, then this might actually become an issue. But right now, when they made that change, they didn't change what we could spend spirit shards on. Like by this point in the game, most people who were going to make all the legendaries have made all the legendaries themselves already. So their spirit shard usage is kind of gone by now. So the only real use for spirit shards at this point is conversions. So how often are people actually doing T5 to T6 conversions? I would think the demand for that is still pretty low. in the big scheme of things with how fast you get spirit shards in the game. Because like I accidentally spent all my spirit shards on bloodstone shards like 8 months ago, and I already have more spirit. Like I accidentally spent 3,800 spirit shards on bloodstone shards, and I'm already way past that. And I've been using spirit shards recently for other things, so I don't really think that spirit shard production is like, yes, you get a few less because of champ bags, but for honestly, I don't even open that many champ bags, so most of my spirit shards came from raids. So I don't really think that that's going to be a huge deal. I do think the T5 thing that they changed with the marks from all the DRMs is a much, much bigger driver of what's been happening in the economy for the last like 4 months.
Someone's saying Overflow definitely brought in the big supply in those account bout markets. I would definitely say the whole thing with the spirit shards actually started with that Wooden Potatoes podcast. And that's actually where we set the price floor. We set it there on that podcast. And I mean, after that, now you've seen everyone kind of get into these account bound markets, which I think also there's something negative to say about that, because there's a whole stigma of staying with only these certain markets, and that only that was the market to go to. And I think the message wasn't misinterpreted. It was kind of misinterpreted, but I think we'll have to see, even with the free market economy, like this rule now in the overflow. I don't know if you guys have it on exchange, because it still says you guys have the you will not post what's it called, a price less than 85%. I'm not actually sure if the exchange follows an actual free market, because I know you don't really check for posts that are maybe in that rule, but then I know Souls does. So it's actually something you guys need to clear up, because on the overflow it's different now. We've actually removed the rule.
Yeah, so on exchange, that rule that we have there for like it had to be above 85% of the trading post value and stuff like that, I've never agreed with that post. If somebody posted a lowball offer and somebody took them up on it, that's their own fault. Like I don't particularly agree with trying to coddle people. If someone makes a bad trade, that's their own fault. Nobody forced them to say yes to a trade. Like I've had a lot of people for some reason they will not turn down a trade. Like I had somebody, like I told them I didn't agree with their price on something, so they kept dropping the price because like they had to make the trade, right? There's nothing in the game that forces somebody to like, you will agree to this trade. So I've always been against the rules like that. If somebody lists something under 85% and somebody sees that as a good deal and they take it, that's on them. Like they may have had other reasons for it. That's one of the reasons why I was a big pusher on Overflow to get rid of that rule. On exchange, Dan wanted that rule in place because he didn't want us to get spammed with stupid posts on the subreddit where, I mean, Sam, you didn't play Guild Wars 1, but you did, right? So do you remember how like Spam-it-in was, where it's just like be constant spamming over and over and over again? Dan didn't want that happening on the subreddit, where people were just making random posts for things that honestly had really, really zero chance of selling. Except to people like me, because I bought that stuff all the time in Guild Wars 1. That's actually how I made most of my gold in Guild Wars 1. But that was the reason for that rule. Souls took that a little too far and was like, nope, someone was 1 copper under, I'm going to give this guy a warning, and was like blasting people.
It was like a police on the exchange.
He was over moderating for a long time. We had to tone him down. We had to bring him back a little bit. But I'm more of it. If someone posts something, it's up to the buyer or seller or the responder to that post to see if that's a good price or not. So if somebody posts a chalk egg sack on exchange for 30,000 gold, chances are he's not going to get any offers from anybody because the price is too high. That's how it should be. But if somebody does go like, hey, I want a chalk egg sack right now, if you could send me within 5 minutes, I'll give you 30,000 gold. That's on him. That's his choice. I'm not going to stop him.
Agree with that sentiment, Sam?
I mean, like you do have to agree with Enko on that end. I am also of the mind that you shouldn't need to pamper people. Like if they do something wrong, it's on them. Like you're already creating a pretty good environment where people can trade safely because we have middlemaning, where people can check the reputation of others, whether they're banned or not. That is like good enough. At that point, if someone wants to drop a price on something because they're comfortable with it, that's on them. If someone wants to buy something at the price that is wrong to the eye of another person, it's on them as well. I know that personally, there are some markets where people would flip that I could craft the items for cheaper, and I undercut them. I was like, I'm fine taking the 80% because I'm still making money on that. I'll take it. And if there was someone on exchange who would buy at 80% because it's good for them and it's good for me, so be it.
You know, before we keep going, there is a question that I had in mind because of a viewer. Brian was asking, and this is a little off topic, but if you're taking community questions, what do Barons use spreadsheets for outside of work / Guild Wars 2? I'm assuming, I guess, what do you use spreadsheets in your actual personal time outside of the game? I guess for me would be I actually work in a bank, so for me, I have to deal with spreadsheets every day as part of my work, my job. And maybe personally, I probably only use spreadsheets for budgeting things if I think I need to actually write something down or have an idea of what I'm supposed to be budgeting for, or if I have to do like a huge calculation of expense, uh, whatever it is, if it's a project I'm gonna get into or something else in my life. But that's for me. Do you guys use spreadsheets in your personal life? You have to if you do it for the game.
I use spreadsheets for almost everything. That's actually how
Yeah.
I almost pretty much organize like my life on in Excel basically. So in my actual job, I do cybersecurity for the DoD. There's a lot of things that involve spreadsheets with how we track stuff and how we list compliance and things like that. Knowing how to use spreadsheets has cut my workload from like 40 hours a week down to something where I can manage it to like 5 or 6 hours a week. And like I look at how some of my coworkers do the work, and then I'm like, if you just do this on the spreadsheet, you could just do everything you just spent the last 2 hours doing. It would have taken like 5 minutes. So there's a lot of things that I've learned. So I started using spreadsheets because of gaming. And because I started making more complex spreadsheets and I learned how Excel and like Google Sheets worked, I was actually able to apply that to professional stuff. And then now I use that for most things. So Guild Wars 2, obviously I use it for a lot of economy stuff to like pull the API and set up formulas so I could just like, I don't have to manually track the profit on things all the time. It's just automatically done. Outside of work, I mean, it's how I manage like my inventories on my movies and stuff like that, because I have like 450 Blu-rays and HD and like 4K movies now, still growing. And there's been times where I've accidentally bought the same movie because I forgot I had it already and it was on sale. So yeah, I started keeping a spreadsheet to keep inventory. So like when I'm at Best Buy or on Amazon, I just have a handy list that I can access, and I also mark down like when I last watched it, like when I bought it, all that kind of stuff. I have that for all my games collections. I do that for a lot of, I do it for a lot of stuff, like for tracking things around the house, like just inventory wise. But as far as actual like formula setups, that's mainly work and for gaming. And when Diablo 2 Resurrected comes out, that's actually where I first started using spreadsheets for games. I'm pretty sure I'll probably have stuff set up for that too once that comes out. I'm looking forward to that game. But yeah.
Nice. What you said?
Right. And well, on my end, it's rather close to how Enko is doing it. Like I started doing spreadsheets because of Guild Wars 2. Like I was just trying to get into the economy, and at some point, someone was like, "Yo, spreadsheets." And I was in business school, so I just figured out I should learn it. And I was doing quite well compared to my little comrades at school, so that was quite welcome. But beyond that, what spreadsheets have enabled me to do is getting recognized for my qualities at work, because I'm able to do stuff better than the other, to do it faster than the other, to do it more with like higher quality than the others. And in personal life, spreadsheets have helped me do a wide range of things. Like, of course, there is the simple budgeting that I would do for. Like when I moved into a new city, I would be like, okay, new rent going to be that much, new expenditure is going to be that much. That's my new salary, etc. Because I moved around a lot. Like I moved around Europe several times in the span of like 4 years across countries, actually. So I needed to figure out how the cost of life would be. So I would use spreadsheets for that as well. Also for currency conversions at the same time. Beyond that, other uses I have found for spreadsheets were like to keep track of my expenses. Like whenever I would buy something, I would make a new entry in the spreadsheet, be like, okay, I bought this on this day at this store. I split the bill or not, etc. I would just put it all in. And at the end of the month, I would recoup spreadsheet with my bank statement. If something was amiss, I would actually call my bank and be like, okay, what is this? I don't know that. That actually saved me quite a bit of money, like in the hundreds of euros over a few years, just paying attention to what was happening on my bank account.
Yeah, I realized like
finally another.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, one last thing that spreadsheets were very useful for me, and that's that might sound like a dumb one, but I kind of liked it. At some point, I was very much into fitness. Like, I mean, right now everything is closed, thanks Corona. But yeah, I used to like go to the gym every single day, and I was very serious about protein intake, overall calories, like ingested, etc. I actually kept a spreadsheet for that. I had all the ingredients and foods I would usually consume because I don't eat transformed foods like industrial shit. That's not my stuff. So I had all the foods I would use with all of their like nutritional values, like carbs, prots, fats, etc. Everything broken down, and I would just use the spreadsheet with like tabs to add like a +6, -6, yes, no, etc. throughout my day to figure out what I would need to eat at the workplace, at dinner, at the snacks, etc., just to have my intakes figured out. So yeah, like spreadsheets, very important, a great life skill to have. And it also helps you figure out a lot of stuff that your bank or other companies around you, stuff like that, could be doing very wrong to you. Because if you can put it into a spreadsheet and understand it, then you can actually challenge the people who are charging you money.
Yeah,
I was going to add to the bank thing. Because I think when I was pretty much only using the spreadsheets for Guild Wars 2, but then when I actually started applying some of that in real life, like especially in college when you're spending a lot of money and you have no idea what you're spending it on, food and all that, I started using the spreadsheets to actually budget my monthly expenses and realizing, okay, how much am I putting for food? How much am I putting for whatever memberships I want to pay for? And it actually helps a lot. You realize that there's a lot of things that you pay for that you actually forget about because every time you go like, I'll check the bank account, and then you don't. The spreadsheets actually help me like finish that cross-checking and everything, and seeing like, am I paying for this? Is this worth paying? How much is the actual cost going to be after the end of the month? So yeah, let's add to that.
Yeah, budgeting is probably the biggest thing that people associate Excel with. But yeah, that's probably the. I mean, that's what Excel's actually designed for.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it is designed to help you like do calculations. One of the sheets I actually used the most for a few years was the one I made because like I needed to get a student loan for my studies. Basically, it's France, but it's like budget America. We do the same things, but less good. So I needed to get a student loan. I needed to get it at a certain percentage with like a franchise period, with like interest rate, of course, with a certain amount of euros I would be paying it back on. Being able to put all of these very foreign concepts into one sheet is a major life skill. Like if you're able to understand how the stuff that's going to cost you money works, then you're able to challenge it. You're able to figure it out. That's important. And that's what Excel really changed in my life, so to speak.
Yeah. All right. To take more questions before we move into our next point in the podcast, Bercy was asking, is there a way? Let's see, is there a way that you can use Spirit Shards to make profit? Yes. The answer is yes. And what ways are they? So I would first suggest actually you look at the Guild Wars 2 efficiency or Silver's API website. There's a lot of I could say recipes and things like that you could look up and see what's the most value for your Spirit Shard. So that would be the first suggestion. Then your second suggestion, at least on the overflow side, is people like we've mentioned previously, sometime a few minutes ago, that you can use Spirit Shards to convert T5 mats to T6. That's pretty much you put them in the Mystic Forge, and then you forge them up to their T6 counterparts. Typically, the mats that we're talking about are the ones associated with the Gift of Might and the Gift of Magic, the exact materials that you need to craft some components for the legendary making, whatever weapon that you're trying to do. So that's one way. You could either do that yourself, and then maybe you can bulk do that and sell the T6 for profit. Or if you don't have the capacity and the actual goal to maybe do a whole production scale on that, you could maybe just sell your spirit shards to people. Yeah, and to answer someone else's question, how much is it? It's usually 140 spirit shards. It's what you will need to roughly make a full set of Gift of Might and Magic. I say roughly because you might not always get a full stack of every T6 set. It sometimes could be over, sometimes you might go less, but you should typically aim for anywhere from 220 to 250. Then whatever over 250 is your profit as well, on top of the current profit. Is there anything else I missed that you guys maybe want to add to the spirit shards?
Go on.
Wait, is this specific about spirit shards, or is this about profit in general?
Specifically
profiting on spirit shards.
Honestly, I don't really think you need to do anything with spirit shards as far as spreadsheet making, because efficiency already has a table set up to actually calculate all the uses for spirit shards and what's more profitable. I think the only thing that's not on there is the use of bloodstone shards, like for making legendaries, and like the Eldritch Scrolls, like the one. Actually, no, I think Eldritch Scrolls are on here. I think legendary production is the only thing that's not counted on that, because, well, actually, I don't know why they didn't do that, but you could check that in crafting. But I think if you wanted to know how to make profit with spirit shards, prior to the currency page on efficiency getting set up, yeah, you would want to make your own spreadsheet for it. But at the time before this was made, like, we didn't have Silver's thing, so we just had the API pull. Silver's thing has recipes now, so you could generate your own. But one thing I was going to mention before is, like, a lot of my spreadsheets now, I don't even bother updating now, because there are online tools that people have made that already do the same thing. So it's just like, why maintain it when other people are going to update it for me anyways? So for spirit shard profit, I would go to G2 efficiency, you click currency, and then you click spirit shards. From there, you just got to understand what the options are on there for what result price, buy price, sell price versus component price, buy price, sell price. Make sure you understand what those do. I've mentioned this on my stream a few times. So if you're going for profit and you're buying your T5 mats, then component price would be buy price, result price would be sell price, because you're going to buy it and then you're going to list it on the trading post. If you're comparing, should I convert T5s to T6? Like, is it better for me to sell the T5s versus sell the T6? Then you're going to mark both of them as sell price. If you're you want T6 mats for your own purposes, and you want to compare it to, like, is it cheaper to buy order T5s and upgrade, or is it cheaper to buy order T6 mats? Then you're going to put both of them to buy price. So a lot of it is just understanding what those options are, and then understanding how the table reads. So I wouldn't really recommend spending the time to make the spreadsheet yourself when it's already done for you, unless you're doing it as an exercise because you want to teach yourself how to use Excel, for instance.
I think that beyond what Enko has just said, which is basically the matter of understanding an opportunity cost here, being like the difference between buying the tier 5 upgrading and buying the tier 6, is that really worth the spirit charge you would spend? What really matters, and the way you should read these websites, is how much gold can a spirit shard net me, and how much spirit shards do I have? Because if you have 10,000 spirit shards, then you're not going to want to get the same value out of them as someone who only has 200, right? The person who has 200 would want to get the most money for that 200 spirit shards. Whereas if you have 10k of them, you're just going to want something that is quick and efficient, that won't require a lot of clicks. Because when you're not farming, when you're just upgrading stuff, clicking on the trading post, flipping, whatever, what you spend time-wise is an amount of clicks. You want to figure out what is the best ratio for you and which part you want to emphasize, be it less clicks, less value, or more clicks, more value, based on what you have, what you want to get. And that's where making the spreadsheet can be a good exercise, because it's going to force you to realize where the opportunity cost lies, where the true value is. You know, when you just look at the values in the table, you're like, maybe I can get 2 gold for that spirit shard. I'm going to do that. And then you realize it will take you like 2 sessions of refinement, a billion clicks, and you're like, okay, fuck it. Spirit Shards is not my thing. And that is where the difference lies. You know, you need to actually understand it, and doing it is a great way of understanding it.
And that's actually a good point where, like, why this goes back to what we were previously talking about Spirit Shard prices. Because Spirit Shards is kind of tedious to convert if you're doing T5 to T6 conversions, or like, it's kind of tedious. A lot of people are going to do that for a little bit and realize that this is really sucks. I don't want to do this because of how boring it is. So unless you have a good system to do that, it's something that you might not want to do. And something someone mentioned in my chat is just like, you know, if you go look at the GWT efficiency sheet where it talks about it and talks about most profitable, you're going to look in there, Triforge Pendant, right? 2 gold, 27 silver per Spirit Shard. But you do have to take into account that a lot of the weapons, a lot of the equipment items, they sell really, really slowly. So like Mjolnir, for instance, 2 gold, 9 silver per Spirit Shard. How long will it take you to sell that though, right? So usually when I talk to people about, and I recommend going to that Spirit Shard page, I'll tell them to skip over the most profitable table, ignore that, go down to common crafting materials refined, and fine crafting materials and rare crafting materials, and only look at that. One of the things for me has always been, like, the way that I've made pretty much all my gold in Guild Wars 2 is high supply, high demand, high velocity items. So by nature, those things end up being relatively cheap items. Like if you look at my my sold items thing, like if you exclude the upgrades, because that's a let's let the first 5 years of the game. If you looked at my sold items thing, the most expensive item that I had sold was like 10 silver. Like most of the items were like 2 silver. I just sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those though, and they add up over time. So yes, you can get.
It's really volume, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it'd be great if you could sell Triforge pendants for 2 gold, 27 silver profit per Spirit Shard. If you could sell, you listed one, it would sell within an hour. If you could do that constantly, then it'd be great. Earlier on in the game, some of this stuff was like that because people were like Mjolnir was a pretty cool skin. Like nowadays, it's like compared to what we have now, it's probably considered an average skin. Infinite Light's still a pretty cool skin, but they don't sell that fast. But if you compare that, like how often are armored scales being sold on the trading post? They sell pretty quick, but your profit per Spirit Shard is only 38 silver, 63 copper. But you can probably, so 38 silver, 63 copper to how many Spirit Shards would you need to convert to be the equivalent of a Triforge Pendant? You would have to sell, what, about 8 of them? About?
Yeah.
How fast would you be able to sell 80 armored scales versus a Triforge Pendant? If you list a stack of T5 or T6 armored scales on the trading post, it'll sell pretty quickly. So there is something about volume. So yeah, if you're going to use that table, make sure you're using that. I generally don't pay attention to the velocity of items just because I generally know what sells quickly, and that's just built up over time and experience. If you are new to this,
that's actually something I want to add is that if anyone is here asking, okay, what do we look for? With the filter, all right, high demand, and whatever supply that you want to do. You want to do a flat ROI, do you want to do something with high ROI? But keep in mind that you're gonna have to maybe spend 30 minutes. Not even gonna take you that long. 30 minutes to an hour. Easily find 5 items that you might be like, this will work out. So yeah, I mean, there's not really something specific. It's just what you find that will end up being your, well, that's gonna be part of my daily routine now. So just take an hour of your time a day and just look at like the tabs and see which one will be something that you can afford to make. And of course, realize that this is over time, right? Volume over time. So it's not some, don't be pissed off if you don't get like all your profit in one go. This is stuff that, this is your daily income. Consider it like the much your daily cash. This is going to come through and it will build up over time. So it's not all in one go. Barons don't make profit on the same day. Barons make profit throughout the entire week by generating consistent returns throughout every day.
I make profit every day now. I know you guys don't.
But like the idea is that, I mean, you don't make 5,000 gold profit a day. I mean, unless you spend the whole day actually doing certain things. But
it's like 2,000.
Yeah, I think if you make more than You can push 3,000. I think you can push 3,000. But like the whole thing I'm trying to say is like, yeah, don't expect to make your entire profit in one day. Like eventually you'll build up to where you can make that much money in one day. But if you're starting out, really make it consistent. Eventually you have more money to put more things that you can make more money out of. And slowly, 5 items turns to 10, 10 turns to 20. Then you grow from there. And then that way you can do that 2K, 3K profit a day.
Yeah. So when I was talking about velocity, if you don't know how fast an item sells just because you haven't been paying attention watching it, you just want to know how fast I sell, GW2BLTC.com, if you look at the items on those, it can show you the rates that they've been selling per day. Where luckily the site's not getting shut down like it looked like it was going to happen a month ago. They are going to keep it going, but that's how you can check velocities. As far as what MM said about finding a niche or about selecting a few items, find your niche. Like figure out a few items that you can do reasonably quickly, that you understand how it works, and then once you learn the process through that, apply the lessons you learned from that and apply it to more things. So like right now, I deal probably in a much higher variety of items than most people. But when I originally started doing this, it was one item and one item only. It was heavy moldy bags back then. That was the only thing I processed. Only things I ever did. And then I eventually, once I learned how to make spreadsheets based off of those and how to track drop rates and how to understand those drop rates and how to make gold off of those, I expanded that into a lot of things. At one point, I was tracking every container, like every of the, not champ bags, but like heavy moldy bags, like all the heavy bags, all the T5 and T6 versions of those bags. At one point, I was tracking every single one of those, and that turned into tracking salvageables. Salvageables was actually the thing where I made my first 500,000 from, where it was literally just put buy orders in for these things, salvage them, and then refine and then sell the items. And all the lessons that I learned from that are all the exact same lessons that I apply nowadays. So yeah, find your niche, figure out what works for you, and then make sure you keep doing it every day and maintain it. Because it also needs to be something you enjoy doing. If you don't like doing something, you're going to burn out and you're going to quit, and then you're just not going to be happy with yourself or the game. So if your one and only way to make gold is farming, but you hate farming, you're going to hate every day of your life. Find something you enjoy and then figure out how to make gold off of that.
Adding to that part, like very early into that intervention, Enko said you need to pay attention to velocity and that it is available on BLTC. Silver also added that to his API, meaning that if you want to make your own version of a tool, you can very well do so. Like I'm gonna try to put an example up very quickly on my own stream, because I think it should work out. Okay, something like this. Oh well, you can see my name. I need to remove a contour here. Okay, brilliant. So right there, that's a very simple like sample sheet to show you like usage of the Mystic Forge. And something that Enko said about prices and overall return is like, I have something about tier 6 over there, for instance. If you upgrade tier 5 totem into tier 6 totem, it's about 42 silver per spirit shard. And around 80,000 of these are sold in a 7-day frame. So you can most definitely get into that and do some of it. However, if you were trying to do something that has like much more value, you could try, I don't know, to do like the Lunar New Year back pieces, but only like 40 to like 100 sell every week. So of course you're gonna hit a wall there. That is why it is very important to pay attention to velocity, as Enko said. You need something, especially when you're starting out, something that you're going to be sure you will be able to sell. It's not about getting the item you will 100% be able to make mad profits on. It's about getting the item you will be sure you will sell and get a profit. As long as it's not a loss, it's already something you're doing right.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's all the questions we've answered for now. Just to get into the next points, because we do have a few other points we want to get into.
Sure.
So moving out of kind of the whole patch that we talked about, the January patch and how it affected kind of the farmers and the infusion market in general, looking into some of the advice on you could use for spirit shards and all, I want to transition kind of into the current outlook of the Iceberg Saga. And there's been a recent pattern that they've done, which I'm sure you guys have noticed, is they've introduced a little more math sinks in the last few patches recently, which has shifted some things like Orichalcum, for example. So what do you guys think about this approach now that they're finally kind of getting back into putting up more math sinks than they used to before? Because if we go back a year ago, there was a huge oversupply of materials that they would just not put anything to sink them into. And it is a huge change for us now to be towards the end of the season, and we're suddenly getting a pattern of every update has had some sort of math sink. What's your opinions on that?
I think this is what ANET should be doing to focus on trying to fix the economy. So one of the big things that has happened with the DRMs is, so there's been a couple things. So we have new weapon sets, right? A lot of the new weapon sets require a lot of T5 and T6 metal, so mithril and orichalcum. So orichalcum, for the first time in years, was over 10 silver. It actually reached 10 silver 50, I think, at one point. I just checked right now in game, and it's at 850 right now. So that's still way higher than it used to be. It used to go for like 2 silver 50. Like mithril was like, I think you guys remember mithril was like 50 copper, right? And so T6 or refined mithril was going for like 90 copper, 95 copper, or calcum with like a silver 50. It was terrible. So there's been two things that have been major drivers for this. So, and we saw some of the prototypes for this before. Remember when they were doing like the Mystic Forge donation things? And like one of the times it was mithril. Mithril went up to like mithril ore went up to like 2 silver or something like that during the 3 days that donation thing was running. I think those donation things were the prototypes for what we're seeing now. Like what we saw with Drizzlewood Coast, where they added you could buy the marks, or you could buy the scrolls with a limited amount each day with different types of materials. So the marks, when they released them, you can trade like 100 silk, 100 mithril ore, 100 large claws or whatever for the for 5 marks a day, whenever they came with the new DRM. This was driving the prices up for those pretty high, a lot higher, where there's a lot of people just instant buying off the trading post, and a lot of people weren't even checking to compare the price, which one was cheaper. Like large claws were by far the cheapest ones whenever they were up, but people were still buying mithril, silk, T6 wood and stuff like that to convert it. But they're actually driving demand for it. It is kind of an artificial demand because those are temporary sinks. The weapons that they've generated, where it's coming up with orichalcum ore, and those are permanently available until somebody, you can keep making them if you want to, right? Those are permanent sinks in the game, which is what I think they need to do with a lot of things. They need to give us a larger variety of items in the game to craft using materials like this. So the marks, as I said, they're temporary because it's only for the day that they're there, and then it changes over the next time. And then when the next DRM comes out, or like, actually, I think that you can't even get those right now because the marks for the specific faction is not here anymore. But the weapons,
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, because I was going to get every single day, but yeah, it's gone now. But the weapons are
it's a period of 15 days, and then
it's 15 days and then it goes away. Okay.
Yeah.
But the weapons, you can keep making those. If they make those tradable, then there'll be a mark for that, because some people are going to be, honestly, they're going to be too lazy to make it themselves. They'll just buy it off the trading post. That's actually, well, I guess I'll save my comments on those types of people later. But yeah, like we have permanent sinks for it, and if they do this for all of the basic and fine materials where there are permanent sinks, because those are really the items that drive the economy. It's the basic materials. A lot of people are like, oh, mystic coins. It's like mystic coins, if you actually look at it, they actually have a limited use. They have a very limited use. A lot of the demand for those right now is because people do use those as an alternate currency to get past a 500 gold mail per week. But if you actually look at what you could use them for in game, it's relatively a small amount. That's honestly why I use ectos, because ectos are used in a lot more things. But if you take a look at what like mithril ore is used for, it's used for a lot of stuff, and it's used for a lot of stuff that is not relevant to the game anymore. Because crafting exotic gear, or actually it's going to be crafting rare gear. Most people don't craft rare gear because they're going to equip it. They're going to, and it's not a permanent sync. Like same thing with ascending gear. If you craft ascending gear, once your character has ascending gear, you're probably not going to make any more ascending gear for that character unless you want to make more sets. We need something that is a permanent sync that's actually can be repeated, that will actually reduce the number of this. So they either need to reduce the supply by lowering drop rates of it, or they need to increase the demand by adding items that are actually using these on a permanent basis. That would actually drive the economy.
If I may actually directly add onto what you've said, Enko, we can see a clear shift in what the economy / the now rewards team is doing over at Ardenet. Originally, one of the biggest gripes that the economy-focused community had with the game, as well as some of the more dedicated players, was that every time we would get a new update, it would come with its new currency that would be used specifically for that update, that would invalidate previous currency usage and make it so that you would actually farm for that, and it would stop having any form of use as soon as the next story or next installment of the Living Word would come out. This has actually changed with the recent change in the rewards team. Now, what they're focused on, if I'm understanding it correctly, is making it so that the economy reaches a state of balance / maybe slightly going towards sinks before having the next expansion. What they're trying to do right now is to make sure that materials are used, that you can use your materials to get currencies for specific stuff like DRMs, maybe some other stuff will come around. They're also... Do you say something in that?
Oh.
Okay. They're also trying overall to make it so that you will empty your material storage, you might empty your guild banks if you had some, and thus creating not a clean slate, but almost for the economy where they can actually decide to add something new with the expansion, something that will use what is currently available right now, instead of trying once again to build on top of an economy that's not being properly managed. Because when you saw, for instance, like one of the best fixes I'm seeing is the pile of coarse sand. We had millions of that with zero use for it beyond making like glass mugs for guild halls, or maybe making the Eternal Sands focus. And now with the new Frost Legion infusion, you have usage for that. If they keep doing this to all of the maps that are oversupplied, both farming the maps that drop these will become cool, like will become very valuable for people who farm, and also people who actually hoarded a little bit of that will actually get more value for it. So it's all great for people.
Part of the problem with that, though, is that ANET keeps introducing new items, though. So, Coarse Sand, for like your example, right? Silver Waste came out before Heart of Thorns. It was actually like right before Heart of Thorns, right? We've had a ton of Coarse Sand in the game and not a lot of things for it. It wasn't until Icebrood Saga where they finally like, hey, we came up with like a reason why people would want to use these things. And also, once you get the Frost Legion, well, I guess because the Frost Legion infusion is tradable, like you could always just sell one and then just make more, right? So it's going to maintain some kind of value now, because the infusions generally, especially like the aura infusions, are generally always going to be in some kind of demand. The prices may go down a little bit, but they're always going to be decently nice. There's always going to be at some point where it's going to be profitable to make them. But the problem is, though, is that ANET keeps doing this with different materials. So like quartz crystals, for instance. We had quartz crystals were used for a lot of things. You know, you can turn in 25 of them to make an account bound one that was then used for specific things. But like quartz crystals, like right now, they're at like 295 or something like that, 2 silver 95 copper. Because there's not a lot of uses for it. Last year, by this time, they were up at around 4 or 5 silver. But we have a huge influx in them at 4 wins because they come with every single 4 wins box. So like I've got 1.2 million because that's how many boxes I opened. But there's no sync for them. So ANET does this with a lot of items, and instead of introducing new items, like if you just look at the material storage, like they did this with shards. Like how many people are going to make more than one Gen 2 legendary? Because they're not tradable. And they're more expensive than Gen 1. So if you want twice total legend, you would just make a Gen 1. And then now with armor coming out, like there's no, like you'd only need to make one, and then now it's going to be account wide. Before, maybe you wanted a shining blade for like 2 characters. Now you don't even need to do that once armor comes out. But they made material storage for shards for Gen 2s. Like, why do they keep adding materials? Like, look at your wallet. How many items are in the wallet now? If ANET would make a use for every single thing in the bank so that they're constantly moving, like people are constantly using those materials, that'll drive the economy. If you had a constant use for everything in your wallet, like there are certain things that make sense that they should be in your wallet, like things are actually used for currencies. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's like the keys, for instance. I actually don't see a reason why they added like the HOT keys to the wallet. Like those aren't currencies. But the fact that we have to scroll on the wallet now, how much we do, is kind of annoying, kind of ridiculous. But if you look at the material storage thing is really the problem. You can just go through there and look at every single item. And if you just go through here, there's a lot of items that just are not in use anymore. Like you'll have a ton of them just because you accumulate them through normal playing, but you have no use for it. That's part of the problem with the economy with Guild Wars 2. But what I'm going to say is, with in defense of Arena and its economy, they are one of the few games that has an economy running for eight years that's still functional. Like if you guys look at WoW,
I'd say it's.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's also to do with No, I'm saying it. I think they have maybe introduced a lot of. I think one of the complaints was always in the currencies of introducing more and more, rather than at this point, like you said, there's so many currencies and a lot of them don't really get used up often. And they have a lot of currencies to use as it is, so it really is not really hard to make something a focus, and then that rises in price. But I do agree with you. It is probably one of the best economies. 8 years, and you go at 8 years now, and you look at WoW. I mean, 5,000 gold, 1,000 gold, and WoW is actually useless. I think that's how much it costs to repair an armor in WoW, right?
Well, with WoW, you could pay for your subscription with in-game gold, can't you?
I guess you can. I guess it's the equivalent of us switching gold to gems. But I think, I mean, look at it right like this. I mean, we're in Guild Wars 2 8 years into it, and how much is it? Like 500 gold, 5,000 gold. 500 gold in itself is still pretty expensive to a lot of players. It might not get you a lot of things that used to.
A lot of players.
Like 500 gold, like it might not get you what it used to get you in 2012. Because I mean, 500 gold in 2012 is what I would equate to maybe something like 5,000 today. I think overall they've handled inflation much better than a lot of MMOs. Point where, I mean, look at it now. Only now getting a lot of players who are hitting over 100k mark in liquidity.
Yeah. So I only mentioned that because it sounds like we're griping a lot about ANET's hand in the economy, but I do want to point out that they actually have done a decent job compared to other games that have in-game economies. I know that it got really, really bad. So after John Smith was no longer with ANET, I don't exactly know why he left. Like he was their in-game economist. He was basically using the Guild Wars 2 ecosystem as like his experiments on his own economic theory. And you could actually see some of that where it was, and a lot of it actually worked out. When he left, from that point until recently, that's where we had a lot of the really, really stale things where like everything was going to vendor value because nobody was handling it. It definitely seems like Arena has hired an economist recently, like in the past 12 months. It's actually probably been about 18 months now, actually, where we're actually seeing like good decisions being made about the economy. But nobody knows who the guy is because like he doesn't talk on Reddit, he doesn't talk on Twitch. His name's not announced anywhere. Probably because they didn't want everybody focusing on him like they did with John Smith, honestly. But I do want to point out again that ANET has done a pretty good job with the in-game economy. There are gripes with it. There are things that it's like, why are you guys doing it this way? There are things that they could do to stimulate the economy a bit. That's what we're pointing out. So it's a good system. It's just that there are some adjustments to make it even better, is what we're saying. Also, people are asking in my chat, or one person in particular, Guild MM, are you blind?
I'll actually answer this for him because I'm his manager. It's not that he is blind. It's just that there is so many gold ingots in his bedroom that if he doesn't wear the glasses, he gets literally blinded by the light reflection on them. That's all.
Exactly. Exactly. No further comments.
All right. What was the original question? We went on a tangent talking about the economy. What the?
I mean, no. We've been answering the original question. The original question I was asking was regarding the current math things that they have recently introduced in the game, and it sounds like they are going in a different direction than they used to. So, yeah, I mean, I'm actually a fan of these math things. It's making use of things that have been here in the game for such a long time. Actually, some of these currencies, Sam, you kind of cover in some of your guides itself, right? I think you even mentioned it in a few of your own streams that you were hoping at one point ANET was going to kind of just go back to what they already have and stop adding more and more currencies that piles up into something that we don't even know what each one's supposed to be used for. Something that you've discussed a lot of times with you.
Like resonating lodestones, for instance.
Yeah, one of my biggest gripes with the economy, which I hope the new economy guy is going to fix. That's why I was mentioning the rewards team, because they fused a lot of like functions within the rewards team, the economy being part of it. And this is not insider info or anything. They actually made a blog post about it some time ago about the new reward team. Because as a partner, I like some people think I know more stuff. That's wrong. I know jack shit.
Wait, really?
But anyways,
that's been why I've been avoiding applying for partner, because I didn't want to have any inside information. If you don't get any, I might as well apply.
I mean, the stuff that you know is very limited, and if you actually have half of a brain, you won't use it in the game. Like, you could do it if you were an asshole, but don't. Like, I've seen people do it, and it's very awkward. One of these was, for instance, the changes in fractals, where you could start using the destabilizing matrices to buy infusions and stuff like this. Like when they actually added value to it and the price skyrocketed, some people were onto that and got outed for it. So all's good. But yeah, going back to the topic at hand, though, on the matter of currencies, my biggest gripe is that right now, I can go into a living story map. I can grind it. I'll get currencies. Example, winter berries from Bitter Frost Frontier. With this, I'll be able to outfit myself in ascended gear. Why is there an issue here? Because that invalidates entirely the process of crafting. Why would I bother farming for gold to buy the materials, level up my profession, buy all the extra materials I'm going to need, because I can't possibly gather all of them by myself, and then go through the tedious process of crafting every piece to outfit myself, when I can just grind the map for a little bit of time every day, get my winter berries, get the entirety of my gear. That's the issue I have with it, because you have a very well-made crafting system, which is so much better than many other MMOs. I don't know if you tried crafting in Final Fantasy XIV. I gave up. It's actually, there is no quality of life in it, whereas in Guild Wars 2 there is so much of it. You have so many good systems, and then they're completely tossed aside because currency is king. Like, people should be able to go into a map, grind, outfit themselves in perfectly fine gear with no effort, no need for any previous system that was created. And I don't like that.
I would say in response to that, though, it's like you can't get all your gear from farming the season 4, season 5, or 5. Wow, season 3 and season 4 maps. Like, you can get trinkets, and you can get like the underwater helmet. Which actually I think you still can't stat swap those, right? I still think that's an issue.
I think you can't.
They need to fix that for one. But like armor, like your actual armor, you can't get ascended weapons through that. You can't get weapons through that. So as far as
weapons you can, I think.
So the stuff you're talking about with the trinkets that you get from season 3 and season 4 maps, we can't craft those still. You still can't craft ascended trinkets. So the primary source for most people is the season 3, season 4 maps, and you have to do specific ones, because I think each of them only does either like a combination of, there's 4 different types. You can only get 3 of them from each map, so you have to do at least 2 maps to get all 4 types. But your point about it's like, well, like ascended gear in general, though, it's like I think most people would probably craft their first set so they can actually do like high level fractals if they're really unlucky with drops, and then you'll eventually after that your drops will sustain you. It's the same thing with raids. Like you could do raids and exotics, and then eventually you'll get geared out in full ascended gear. Well, you can do that through playing, or you can do it through crafting. I think that is because
I'm cool with drops.
Oh, you're talking about just farming, like just a material that you turn into a vendor and do it.
Yeah, like it's the same actually for raids. Like with the magnetic shards, you can
Yeah.
outfit yourself entirely. It's not just like the raid drops that you can purchase with the magnetic shards. You can buy any form of ascended gear with it. You know, it's just I understand that it's very simple. It's cool for new players. You know, it's so nice. You just start playing the game. Oh man, I can just play the content I like and outfit myself in base gear from it. That's great. That's a very good marketing thing to push forward. Yet it invalidates some stuff that they made before. Like I remember when ascended gear was a thing that was like 2000 and late 2013, somewhere early 2014, something like this. Late 2014.
I think something like that.
It was so big.
The
It was
late
so
year.
big. With the fractured patch, I think that was late 2013. It was so huge. Like everybody was into this. You could grind so many more levels on your fractals. You would need that gear. So many people tried and got into crafting it, and that was good. It ate up materials. It actually made the economy feel a little bit better, because before that you would delete stacks of silk from your inventory after each farming session. Or you would vendor them.
Maybe
that
you
was
guys did. Maybe you guys did.
I'm just saying.
I can't really relate, because I mean at that time I was also probably still just looking at the trading post.
I was
in 2013.
My guildmates were giving me all their thick leather scraps, and I just held on to them. And they're like, "Oh crap, they changed the recipes, and now it's like like 90 silver now or 90 copper now." Yes. But yeah, I get your point. So I think the reason why Enko did that for Ascended Gear is because one of the big drivers for this game is that we don't have a gear grind. So they wanted to make material Ascended Gear pretty reasonably available. Because if you look at other MMOs, right? The traditional way MMOs handle new content or keep people in the game is a gear treadmill. Every time new content comes out, we increase the power levels of your gear, and that's how they balance new raids for like WoW, for instance. So like WoW, the new raids just aren't like super easy. So there's a give and take with that. There's a positive and there's a negative to that. So for Guild Wars 2, they wanted people to have access to best in slot gear. Before Ascending, it was all exotics, right? Exotics, relatively easy to get. You could just buy it out the trading post, or you could craft it, or you could get it as drops. Right, so I think they wanted to keep some kind of semblance of that for Ascended Gear, but maybe have it a little more limited. Where Ascended Gear, you can technically buy it if you buy all the materials and craft it. It's a little pricey.
Problem with that, though. See, the problem with that is, and I think this has kind of been somewhat of a disconnect on how to get from exotic to ascended. This has been the question, a very popular question over the years. How the hell do I save enough to get from exotic to ascended? Because exotic is like what? Like you'll spend like 10, 12 gold on the entire set.
It used to be more expensive.
Yeah, and now you're spending around 300 to 400 on an ascended. It's still it's a huge jump to go from an exotic set to an ascended, even till today.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think Enko still wanted to keep it a little bit harder to get because they didn't want people to go straight to it. They did want to have it be some kind of progression that, oh, you hit 80, you get exotic gear, you get exotic berserker's gear, and then you work for it, and then you eventually get your ascended berserker gear. But they wanted different avenues to get that. I do think that the Season 4, Season 5 currencies made trinkets a little bit too easy to get, because do you guys remember the only way to get Berserker Ascended accessories used to be?
Laurels?
No, it was through guild missions. You could only get them through guild commendations. Althea's Ashes and the Baradin's accessory, you could only get them through guild missions, and you could only get, at the time, 6 guild comms a week, and they cost 12 guild comms. So you had to do 2 weeks per Ascended Berserker accessory. And then the Red Ring of Death and the Crystalline Band, you could only get those through fractals. So that was before we had. Now Ascended Gear is super, super accessible. So like the amulets only through laurels. The rings are only through fractals. The accessories are only through guild missions. the backpacks was like the spinal blades, if you guys remember those. So there, so there was very specific ways to get those, and then they've opened up access to those. So now it's like you can get. It's very easy to get Ascendant Tree. It's like you said, you just go to season 3, season 4 maps, and you just go gather a bunch of materials and go turn them in. For better or for worse, it may not be a good way to do it, but it does make it very accessible to newer players. And I think Aina's more worried about the newer players coming in and being able to get that gear and jump into content nowadays. So, and I think part of that is driven by the community's non-acceptance that exotic gear is okay for raids. Like exotic gear is okay for raids. It's much more important to like know how to play your class. But you still have groups that's like, if you don't have full Ascendant gear, like they won't let you play with them. When in reality, if you're a decent player with exotics, you'll probably do better than most of them because you know how to push your buttons. Like the power.
Yeah, I think that's also one thing that makes the game better, right? I think one thing that separates Guild Wars 2 is also the skill level, not so the gear that you have on you. It kind of pushes you to, you reach the level cap, and people usually in other MMOs, this is where they're like, all right, when's the next set of armor sets coming out? When's the next set of gear grind? But Guild Wars 2 doesn't really push you towards that, right? It really more or less strives to kind of like the whole thing of, now it's just getting better at your class, like whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I think that's actually a big positive of Guild Wars 2, is it doesn't rely on over the top grinding, which honestly, to me, it's more of a repetitive thing that I honestly have never really enjoyed in other MMOs. And I love how Guild Wars 2 does shift from that, and the focus is only purely on, well, how good can you get now with your class? And honestly, that just takes practice. Really.
It's player skill level versus your item level. So WoW. Yeah, or sorry, Sam, go ahead. We've been talking.
Like, I mean, I would mean to say that with that, there is only ever so much you can do with player skill level. Like, if you look at the more recent installments of PvE content, strike missions are easy. DRMs are really easy. Raids were not really that hard. Like, you can see that people take, maybe a little bit of time to figure it out, but they're going to complete it. Like, you have some content in other MMOs, like Final Fantasy XIV, WoW, etc., that people below a certain level of skill cannot complete because they haven't completed the previous content, and they're not going to have the gear to tackle that content specifically. I remember when I was doing Final Fantasy XIV, I tried, grinding upwards for some stuff. There was some content I actually hit a hard wall on. I was like, okay, I'm under-geared. I won't be able to do that for now. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, there is no under level, there is no under geared, and the skill you might need won't ever be that high. Like, you're going to be able to complete it by bashing your head at the keyboard. I know at some point a friend of mine ran the math, and they said if you have a team of 7 weavers hitting 8k DPS with a chrono, with 2 chronos and a druid, you can actually complete almost any encounter.
Yeah. So
you can just do it. It just works.
That's part of the. I think that's part of the little mindset of ArenaNet, though. So ArenaNet wants the content accessible, which for the people that do raids, it's a little annoying because when raids were first announced, it was said it was supposed to be the hardest content for the people that wanted the challenge, the people that wanted content that we couldn't beat, that was going to be hard to do. You actually had to work it. You had to get better at the game. And that's why, Wing 1, I still think Wing 1 is a more challenging wing than most wings. Like, mechanically, it's a lot more challenging than other wings. You know, granted, nowadays, there's a lot of ways to cheese past mechanics, like just out healing the greens. With Gorseful, just out DPSing it so you don't get a World Eater. Sabbatha, I still consider a pug killer for most groups because they can't do the cannons. You have to do the mechanics in that fight. But Wing 1 was a challenge, especially when we first got it, mainly because, one, not everybody had Ascendant gear at the time. Like, we weren't investing slot gear. And going from exotics to Ascended, did that help a little bit? Yes. It made the fights a little shorter because you did more damage. But we also didn't know how 10-man comps really worked. We didn't have, because before that was all 5-man content. So Wing 1, it took a lot longer to beat than other ones. Well, unless you don't include the drama with the certain guild that was involved in testing it. But the Wings 2 and onwards, though, they were usually beaten. Wing 2 took a couple of days. Wing 3 and onwards, though, they were all beaten in the first day. One, because by that time, 10-man setups, like team setups, had already been refined to the point where we actually understood how they worked. Most people were in best in slot gear by this point. It all depended on your individual skill level. So if you look at WoW, if you look at Final Fantasy 14, you look at most other MMOs with the gear treadmill, they release a new raid. You are artificially blocked from that content because of your item level. Now, eventually over time, as you kept farming and farming and farming, even if you were a bad player, you would eventually clear it just because your gear would be out-geared for that raid. Guild Wars 2 is a little bit different, where it's just like, okay, everybody has access to best in slot gear. You can get best in slot gear pretty easily. Now it's purely on your individual skill level. So for other MMOs, when the raids first come out, you have the best guilds that can go through it and do it with lower tier gear, and that's why it's such a huge accomplishment to be the first players to get through that stuff, because you actually have good gear. You have to have a really good group to do it with, and you'll eventually get through. It's still tough because your gear is not out leveling the raid itself. Guild Wars 2, though, it's purely dependent on your skill level, because once you get best in slot gear, my character stats wise is no better than anybody else's character with best in slot gear as well, because we all have access to it. So it's really just your individual skill level at that point.
An extra percentage, really, it's an extra percentage, which I guess if you want to max out your class DPS or whatever comp you're playing, I guess it would matter if you are seriously trying to push for something. Yeah, I mean, that extra 4% is not gonna affect much in the whole outcome if you just.
I remember I got told by somebody in my old guild, the reason why they find this game boring is that the game doesn't force you to improve. Like, the game does not provide anything that forces you to improve, because open world, for instance, right? What's the big joke for people that are open world? They go in there, they spam 1. They just stand there and spam 1 because we're beating it just by numbers. Like, you don't actually have to do anything to get better. I tell my viewers all the time that if I'm ever doing open world stuff, that's when you should be practicing your rotations, so you can get used to needing to dodge stuff, getting used to having to deal with mechanics for it, getting used to getting back on track instead of just doing golem routines, right? But most people at open world events, they're just there and hitting 1. That's why it's such a big problem to getting people to CC the boss, because they're just I'm just mindlessly hitting 1. Fractals, for instance, there's nothing in the game that puts a time limit. Like, if you look at fractals, there are some groups that get through CM99 now in 2 or 3 minutes, or less than a minute per boss, right? There are some people that take an hour for that entire fractal. Okay, but either way, so here's the thing. And I know people who have watched my stream, I've said this a lot. So Guild Wars 1, why was there an incentive to get better at the game? So doing Domain of Anguish hard mode. The first time we did it, it took 4 hours with that first clear. Speed clearers got it down to under 15 minutes. Why would you want to be able to do it in 15 minutes versus taking an hour, which is what a lot of pugs did? The rewards. So if you gave me 1 hour with the pug group, I can clear it in 1 hour. I got the reward from that. With my guild, I would clear it 4 times. We would get the reward 4 times in 1 hour, because there was no lockout. So we had a reason to want to. We had a financial incentive to want to be better at the game, because we wanted to do it faster. Also, a little bit because we were going for times and records and stuff like that too. But just rewards in game, you got more rewards because you were better at the game. Now look at Guild Wars 2. Is there any incentive to doing fractal CMs and T4s faster than another group, besides your own personal sanity, because you don't want to spend an hour on 99 CM or something like that, right? No, because you get the reward from 100, 99, 98 CMs and the T4s. It's on a daily lockout. You can't get the reward again. So if it took me 20 minutes or let's say a full fractal clear for CMs and T4s, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is people are doing nowadays. I haven't done fractal in a little bit now. So 30 minutes. I get the exact same reward from clearing all CMs and T4s as another group that took 5 hours, because I cannot get that reward again until the next reset. So there's no incentive to get better. It's like, oh, it's okay. We'll just go in there and beat our heads against the wall and take it 5 hours to do it, because we got our clear. We're all good. Now imagine if it's like you can do that repeatedly in the day, and every single time you did CMs and T4s, you got your 50 gold, because that's how much you get from that. Now, if it took me 30 minutes to get 50 gold, and then I did it again for another 50 gold, so I got 100 gold in an hour, and I could get 100 gold an hour just from doing fractals nonstop, people would do that. And they would get better at the game.
Saying,
they would want to get better at the game.
Versio, you're saying you can have multiple accounts. Well, I mean, I guess, yes, you can bypass that with multiple accounts.
But then you need a group that can also have multiple accounts.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, 4 people, so times 8, so times 2, so that's 8 accounts you need. Or if it's a group of 10, then another 20 accounts, which more likely or not, most people won't have. Something actually that came into my mind about this, Sam, you kind of actually deal very closely now with the Raid League in itself, right? Because you've been hosting them for some months now. And I know you guys have come up with your own rewards every month and everything. What would you think is the general sentiment towards, what financially keeps these raiders interested? Really, it's of course competition and elevating themselves and title. But have you noticed that there were some months where the rewards were less, there was less participants versus months later where the reward was significantly maybe larger and maybe there was a bit more participation from a few guilds more than usual? What was your overall view on that?
The sentiment I got from the rating league was that people are actually in for the enjoyment they get of being shown on a live stream with people. Yeah, not just the prestige, but like just the enjoyment. Because some people are always not doing too good, but we're gonna give them their 1-2 minutes talking about them. We're gonna present the gear. We're gonna say, okay, these people, they're participating in this. They're cool. They're making an effort every month. They do a slight improvement. They're getting better times, etc. And at some point, it just feels good to know you're part of something. That is what I think makes people go onwards. Of course, now that we've managed to reach support from Aaron and Nat and some more support from other people and growing bigger, more and more people are getting interested in it. And that is great because there's only so much you can do with your own growth. At some point, you need external growth. You need other people to become actors inside your project so that it grows bigger. There's only so much you can do with your own.
Agreed. So
I think that people are into that. And actually, to go back to what you were saying, Enko, earlier, because I kind of wanted to say something about that, but didn't get to. On the matter of doing fractals, etc., doing any form of content faster, it's being able to do more content within the same time frame. So that's the first thing there is. So of course, if I can finish 99 cm faster than the other guys, I'm gonna get my 100 cm done. Maybe at some point they will go to bed. I will have been done 4 hours ago, and right now I'm watching Netflix, right? So that is one incentive to like be decent. If you have time you need to manage. And actually, I've seen that most of the people that I played with in Hardcore Guild, some of them were just here because they actually wanted to be the very best at the game and spending like half their day in it. And then in like semi-hardcore, bottom hardcore guild, it's mostly people who have a life. Like I had like teachers, I had people who had a job, people who just wanted to be able to get their raids done in a timely manner because at 10 p.m., they would be watching the TV with their spouse. That's the kind of people I saw in that semi-hardcore to hardcore group. And finally, one last thing I would add on the matter of, is it worth being better at the game? That is something that has kind of died out from before. Just raids made it like much more common, and now it's just shooting down. It's the act of selling content, like selling completion of content. Yeah. Right now, you have so many people selling raids because it is easy to do raids with 9 people. Hell, it's easy to do raid with 8. If you're actually able to do half of a rotation, 7 people, that's doable. As we said earlier, 8k DPS Weaver will clear any raid. That is a fact. So 7 people, you can do it as well, right? You can sell the slots. But what I remember, back in the days when selling Fractal 50 was a thing, I would duo Fractal 50. Some of my guildies would solo Fractal 50 because you could sell them 4 slots for like, 20 to 40 gold a piece. If you're able to do all the fractals, like all the 3 fractals to get to the boss one, if you're able to do that within half an hour with a buddy, you're splitting 100 gold 2-way for half an hour. Man, that's massive gold per hour. I myself would solo dungeons and sell them. I made a lot of my starting cash by soloing and selling AC paths because it was piss easy. I would do P3 in exactly 14 minutes alone, like to get to the end boss, of course, and I would sell 4 slots. Like in an hour, I do it 4 times. Each time I would sell the slot for 4 gold, 16 gold 4 times an hour. That's 64 gold, man. It's pretty big. I'm liking that. 64 gold an hour. No farm in this game can beat that. Only the trading post can, which is why I got into the economy. And that is the
Also,
only way skill matters. It's if you want to be fast or do it with less people so you can make gold.
Yeah. So this is what the point I was
the
driving
idea is
to,
that
though.
it's necessity, right?
Yeah. So, but this is the
just
point I was
wanna,
driving to. So financial, you have financial incentives, and then you have personal incentives. Like you want to be better at the game for your own personal satisfaction because you want to get higher numbers. You want to improve things. You want to see you complete that in a lower amount of time than other people, right? That's not a financial thing. That's a personal thing. Now, sometimes when you could tie those together, it's like, because people that started soloing dungeons, they're probably doing like, oh, I want to see if I can do it. I want to do it for the challenge. And then once they realize that, hey, I got this down. I got this locked down. I can do it consistently. I know how much time it is. Hey, you know what? I got these forested slots. While I'm practicing, trying to get better and better and better and faster and faster and faster at this, I might as well sell these 4 other slots. So at that, then you tie in a financial incentive. Okay, but your point about, oh, if you do 99 CM, you could go and do 100 CM. Okay, well, I'm looking at your daily rewards as a whole. So your CM, your T4s and your CMs together. If you're going to complete all of them, and all you care about, you're not worried about the time. You just want the reward, right? You're looking for the exclusive rewards from fractals. You can only get that once a day, no matter how fast or how slow you do it. You have to wait till the next reset. Now for raids, we can only get raid rewards once a week. There's a lot of people, once they get their weekly kill, they don't do them again until reset. There's a lot of people that do them again. They do them daily. They do them multiple times a day. They grind the bosses. They're not doing it for any financial benefit. They're doing it for their own personal satisfaction because it's like, we want to get a better kill. We want to get that sub 1 minute Karen. We want to get that sub 3 minute Samurai, whatever. They want to do it because their team has a goal for it that they want to get a certain time. They want to beat other people. They want to show that they're the best. That has nothing to do with financial things. Now, your incentive to get into that scene, if you're a normal player, you do raids, how do you get into that? Like a lot of people, so as we said before, some people were doing for the personal challenge, and then what drove a lot of people to get even better was it's like, hey, I can make gold off of this too. If there's no financial incentive, because most people are going to do it for that carrot. Okay, but again, the point I was making with this, the game doesn't do anything to force you to be better. Now, if they took all the rates and they took the timers, like they cut them in half, and if you went past that timer, instant death. It would actually put some kind of crunch on us that's like, you have to be better at the game to beat
I think
this
that's
thing.
also because then you would have to do it by then. You can't, otherwise you fail, kind of thing. But I think I've noticed the pattern that Sam kind of said, something to add to your point, not financially, but you said because some people need to get better at doing it in a short amount of time because they need to, because that's all the time they have maybe in the day. So really there is maybe a significant, I don't know how significant, but there obviously is a portion of the population who they get better not because maybe sometimes they want to, but because like they only have maybe say 3 hours to play. In those 3 hours, they need to be as productive as they can with their timing. Really, so that's really the productivity as well, right?
You need to balance that with balance trying to get people to play the game more, right? So other MMOs do it by, oh crap, if you don't clear the raids every week, you're not going to get the gear to be able to clear it easily. But with us, if you do your wing 1 through 7 clear in one day, what incentive do you have to do it again the next day? You don't, unless it's because I want to do it for different reasons. Either raid selling because, oh, I get more rewards, or because I want to push harder or get better at this. Because some people are okay with doing, hey, you know what, I have a group of friends, we have fun playing it, we'll do one raid wing a week, and then we'll just do Monday, we'll do wing 1, Tuesday, we'll do wing 2, and so forth. They get their entire clear a week. Now, I used to do with my guild, we used to do 2 full clears a day. Not because we were selling at the time, it was because we wanted more practice. We wanted to get better. We also had more people that could fit into one raid team. We had like 35 people in the guild. And so to get all of our raid clears done each week, we had to rotate through all of them. And then everybody else that wanted to come, it was because they wanted practice to get improvement, because we kind of had a minimum skill level you had to do to be in the guild. And some people needed the practice. But like for raid sells though, like for raid selling, we used to sell raids. We used to do 8-man raids and we sold 2 slots. It was actually a gold loss for me. My opportunity cost compared to what I was doing for the training post, I was actually losing gold compared to what I could have done in those hours. But why did I do it? Because I liked raids and we were pushing for times. There's some raid selling groups, they don't care how slow they kill it. They do the safest strats possible because they just want the reward. We were actually doing trying to do speed strats with 8-mans, and we were trying to push for times with 8-mans. So it wasn't always a one shot, but
achievement.
Yeah, we were doing it. It was just extra incentive. We were being incentivized by the gold. We were also being incentivized by we wanted to improve ourselves. So a lot of the people raid league, you were saying their motivations. Oh, they get a shout out on the stream, right? A lot of them are also doing it because they want to improve themselves. They're not getting any extra gold out of it unless they win the league, I guess. But some of those teams have no chance of winning. They know that they're just there because they enjoy raiding. But the game itself doesn't force you to get better.
But that is one thing we put aside, of course. That is one thing. We're talking about being able to do the content faster, having more time, etc., getting more reward. Actually, there is also the matter of the content just being fun. At some point, I would enjoy doing raids. That was before I got burnt out on them, of course. But I would actually raid every day of the week. Maybe not 2 full clears a day like you would do at a card, but for sure. I would actually pug. I would go forward. I would be I would have a friend hitting me up and be like, "Oh, can you feed our group because we're struggling, etc." I would just go in because some content can be enjoyable, and that is also something you need to balance out when you're doing stuff. And I guess that's a good way to get back into talking about the economy. It's at some point you're going to figure out that what you like isn't necessarily what's the best for your wallet. You're going to need to balance stuff out. You're going to need to balance maybe doing flipping that you don't like with raiding that you like but can be very time consuming, because for maybe 15 minutes in an hour, you're just going to wait for some pug to fill. That's the case. And
I think that's the kind of the waiting period. I've actually had multiple times when I've been in a group and there's a lot of downtime between raids. If someone leaves, you're waiting 15 30 minutes for someone to come back in, and in that 15 to 30 minutes you could have been halfway through the next raid. It's sometimes can be a little annoying, especially when you're doing it at a time where sometimes in the week where people have already done their clears, so you're really not going to get other than whoever is also late to the week, late to the party to get their clears done, right? So
so to bring it back to the economy, right? Well, I've been asked this a lot on my stream. It's why do you keep making gold? You already have everything you want in the game. You could already afford everything in the game, right? It's for that personal satisfaction of, hey, I get to make a new spreadsheet. I get to do something more efficiently. I get to do those incremental improvements over time. It's the same mentality with raids. You have the incremental improvements over time to get better at the game. You find new strats. You find better ways to play your class. You play more classes. But the game itself doesn't force you to do any of that. So what's an incentive for me to make more gold? Because I want to. Now, if do you remember when the golden bowl for the decoration in the guild hall was 10K, right? You can brag about that, right? That was an in-game incentive. You want to have 10K gold so you could do this, right? Other than stuff like that, there's no incentive to make gold in this game. There's no incentive for someone to be a TP baron or to make a lot, to trade a lot, except for your own personal satisfaction. Some people like to do it because they want to cause eye cancer to everybody in Mistlock Sanctuary. Some people do it for their own personal satisfaction. But it's the same mentality with raids. If we had something for a gold sink in this game that was actually, it's hey, you need to be spending gold on this if you want to get it, we would have an incentive. It's oh crap, I need 100K gold to go get this thing. It's a really, really cool thing. But it's also the point of where it's it's so far out of reach that people don't even try. There's a difference there. There's a lot of people that don't get into raids because they feel like it's so out of reach for them that they don't even bother trying. That's the gap that ANET needs to bridge, where the things or maybe not seem, but are attainable with some work. So the mentality I applied to the economy,
here's a question for Sam.
The same mentality I applied to raids.
I mean, here's a question for Sam. So, in the raid league itself, do you guys experience that where some people? I'm sure there is, but how much of it do you experience where people are it feels a little unfair, or the fact that they know they're not gonna be winning because they're going up against some of the best teams, and have some of those teams, had the extra motivation to try to get better, to try to get a better league ranking in that month, for example.
Definitely. The way the league works right now is that we only look at the end placement after 3 sessions. So it's you have 1 month, second month, finally, leaderboard is published. And each installment, the leaderboard is published with the changes you have from your participations. Of course, the more you participate, the better your score is going to get. Like someone who participates at an average level 3 times is going to be better than someone who participates at maybe just a little bit over average, but only once. So that's one factor to like try and be there every time. Then the second element there is trying to improve your score each time so that you get a better placement. And some people are adamant on working on that, and it's very nice to see them, because you're going to see people who are gonna get like a rating of something like I don't know, bottom of gold league, or like more like bottom of silver league, and then they're gonna work on it, and then a month later you see that they're third. You're like, wow, that's already an improvement. And the only incentive for them is, of course, to be better than their previous score, and maybe, just maybe, to get a little bit of prize, but that's only for the top 2 in each league, like top 2 bronze, top 2 silver, top 2 gold. So you need to be in there if you want something. Otherwise, you just get like a participation reward.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this goes back to incentives, I guess, because they get to see their name on stream. A lot of people like that. For going back to the economy, when GW2 Efficiency added leaderboards, I've talked with a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm pushing for this. I want to be number 1 on the leaderboard for whatever item, because like it tracks a lot of that. Like, I know some people that set up a macro to just type in /GG constantly because they want to be the number 1 player on the death board. Like some people like that. Like
for some reason.
Like that thing's kind of that example's kind of weird, but I do know a couple people that are like that they just leave their computer on, they just /GG in game in a place where they can do it, and then they revive themselves and then /GG again because hey, they want to be atop the leaderboard for that. Leaderboards, public recognition of people's skill is a pretty big thing. If you tie that also along with a financial incentive, like esports, for instance, right? A lot of people do it for the fan recognition. A lot of people do it because they could get paid a lot of money for it. So imagine if we had raid leaderboards in game. Like they could follow the same thing as
I guarantee if we had leaderboards in the game and this is something that's been kind of a calling from a lot of players, and not just raiding. I think even World vs. World leaderboards that properly can outline maybe guilds or something.
Yeah.
Right. And I definitely you'd notice that probably be more people who would want the recognition. Of course, easily something like this could be implemented where the leaderboard could tie in with maybe a reward. Now, of course, what that reward could be, I think something ANET could figure out. And I think, I'm sure they have stuff in mind that they just maybe haven't had the time to execute or any of that.
So
all in all, they would love. I mean, a lot of these things, they're simple. It's not really adding anything in terms of content, but it does add that strive of motivation, people to play what's already available. So, while some people might say a leaderboard is useless, believe me, anytime you introduce a leaderboard, people will want to try and get their name up there. It may seem useless, but later when you add a reward to it, you're going to see people competing for it. Even if the reward is minimal, it's just the idea that your name is up there is going to get someone to want to get there.
So here's some ideas I brought up on stream for like achievements, right? What if all your raid achievements, what if they had it so now with like the salvaging achievement, right? Every time you finish it, it tells you how many times you completed it and it keeps track of that. Like if you look at mine, for instance, mine is if you go to tradesman, agent entropy, right? Mine tells me how many times I completed. I've completed 409,705 times. So that's multiply that by 200, and I know how many total I've done. But it tells you how many times you've done the achievement. Imagine if they did that with raid achievements. So like there's an achievement in Spirit Veil for killing Veil Guardian. Beyond the Veil, defeat the Veil Guardian. Now, if it showed every time you killed Veil Guardian that it incremented, it actually kept track of it. I would love this if they could do it retroactively. And then that was able to be tracked in the API, so efficiency could show on the leaderboard, and you could show that someone on this one account has killed Veil Guardian the most times of anybody in the game. There will people that will start grinding Veil Guardian just to be on the top of that leaderboard. And then because of that, they would have to do it faster if they want to keep it with other people. So you can have just the achievements run the leaderboards, and hey, other pages can run it. So in game, it might not track it at all, but efficiency could track it with their stats page. they just have to open the API. If they don't want that in the game itself, because ANET's got this purity of purpose where it's like, we don't want to be involved in that kind of stuff, right? Okay, if they don't want to be, they can have it be player driven then. The community can run that kind of stuff. If they added those achievements to the API, then they could do that. And then like for like World vs. World, for instance, you could have a leaderboard on efficiency for number of players got killed per week. So you would have people like grinding to try to kill or get as many kills in World vs. World because they want to be the top of the leaderboard. What if they did that in game? What if they had an in-game World vs. World leaderboard guild that did the most kills, and it shows up guild that captured the most keeps, metrics, stats like that. And there's going to be people that are going to be like, hey, we want our guild to be number one. We're going to start recruiting. We want 500 World vs. World players in this guild because we want to be number one on those leaderboards. If you had in-game leaderboards for raids where it's like daily, weekly, monthly at top times for each boss or something like that, they could even time rewards to that kind of stuff. I wouldn't want to be, well, I mean, if it's like maybe the monthly thing, like monthly AT's got a pretty cool reward if you win it, right? What if being the number
If you
one,
win it though,
like what if being number one on the raid board, you got an access to something like the PvP, whatever the thing the Gizmo gives you access to. You're the top of the monthly raid leaderboard for the fastest times on like overall, and you get access to this exclusive area. Like stuff like that.
well, actually, Sam, I mean, I'm
they
sure
don't have to
you
change
guys
raids
in
at
the
all.
raid
They just
league-
have to change the rewards for it. It doesn't have to be a financial reward. It could just be a recognition reward.
I mean, yes, without reward. I don't see why they wouldn't implement it. They kind of do already for PvP in a way. There is a leaderboard-ish, but something actually like Sam, you might be able to benefit from this adding besides the actual raid league, maybe a leaderboard based on some kills or something that are more player driven within your own league. I think just the suggestion.
We actually have that. We actually have that running on a bot, so to speak. Like there is a bot in the raiding link shows that tracks that has as data the fastest kill times for each of the bosses taken from speedrun.com. And if a team manages to beat that, they get that hugest shout out. And we've seen that every month. We get record-breaking runs. And that's crazy. Because we have teams who are just gonna like unveil that one kill they did for the rating league, that's better than the record run. And that is huge, that is the kind of stuff we need to share. On the matter of leaderboards, I want to add two things to what Anchor said. The first one is we have that for dungeons. The Dungeon Master achievement has tracking. You can see how many
it didn't
times
originally,
you complete. Yeah, and you needed to complete every path before it would tick even once. So that was a pain for me because I used to do all the dungeons quite often, except I always skipped out on Ara because I was tired in the evenings, and I didn't do Ara Path 2 for like a year and a half. I just skipped it, and I never got the achievement count. And the other thing I wanted to say is, do you remember the controversy of fractal leaderboards? How long we've waited for that?
Okay, but
that's an 8-year dreams.
Do you remember how ANET said they were going to do leaderboards for fractals originally? Do you remember their original concept for leaderboards?
It's been so long, I actually forgot.
So it was an all-time leaderboard, and number one on the leaderboard would be the first person to reach level 50 fractals. The second person would be the next person to reach level 50 fractals. So once you got your top 100 people that all reach level 50, it would never change. So I'm not saying an all-time leaderboard. Like if it's just I got to the highest level of fractals, that leaderboard's pointless. Okay, you need something that can constantly be changing. So if it was like for nowadays, what I would imagine be you would have a leaderboard for 100 CM. How many you could do it? How many times someone completed it a week, or you could do it top time, or you could do it something that would be reset on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, something like that. Or just have all three. Like just have they with adventures, with the races, for instance, right? They have your daily times and they have your monthly top times. Like they could do something like that where they track it on each tab and you could show how you compare to everybody on your friends list, everybody in your guild, or just everybody in the game. And they may not necessarily need to tie in a reward for that. It could just be public recognition is your reward. Or they could even tie an achievement to it. It's just like, be number one daily 20 times or something like that. Or 5 times, you get a title. Maybe you don't get AP, maybe you don't get any like actual reward, but you could get a special title or something like that. Or if it's just an achievement that keeps track of it, but doesn't give you anything, it just keeps track of it, then you could track that on GW2 efficiency with their leaderboard system. If you don't want to give it any in-game benefit, you could have a recognition be out of game. So if they just added old achievements,
they kind of allow people to do that.
But it's limited on the achievements that are tracked that can also count up each time.
So they'd have to actually put in the system for it, I guess.
They would actually add in the AP, but they did this for a lot of things though. So as we talked about with Dungeon, the Dungeon achievement, once you got it, and that was it. And then they remade it so you can repeat them, and every single time you repeated it, you would get that whatever 8 gold or something. I don't remember what it is, but then your tally would count up. So if you go to Guild Wars 2 efficiency and you go down to some of the ones that are based off of achievements, like Agent of Entropy is tracked on here, right? So how are they tracking how many items I salvaged? They're tracking it by the achievement. So according to the efficiency, I'm number 1 on the leaderboard for salvages. I've salvaged 81,744,696 items. Okay. The next person is 47 million. Okay. They're pulling this from my account. They're pulling this from my account via the API. And they're doing it because Agent of Entropy tracks it every single time you do 200 salvages. Now you stop getting AP. You stop getting achievement points after 250. There's a cap to it, but it still tallies it up. Okay, so that lets efficiency, because it's in the API, it lets you pull the data for it. Imagine if they did that for Defeat the Veil Guardian achievement. Every single time you beat it, that achievement says, you've completed this achievement 5 times. You completed this achievement 6 times. They don't do anything in game with it beyond that, but it's in the API now. Now efficiency could go, account that's defeated Veil Guardian the most times, and then you can have a leaderboard for it there. Then you might have people doing that more times because they want to be number 1 on that leaderboard. There's no rewards tied to it. It's just recognition for it. It's like, haha, I'm high on a leaderboard type thing, right? So they could do something like that.
Someone can make
it will not affect the in-game economy
bring that up on
at
their
all.
Forums.
It would not affect the in-game economy at all. Now, if they did that for every achievement, think of what we could do. Think of what we could do with API.
This would actually be huge.
So I kind of want to get into
Sam, we got a question
are
for you,
actually a little over time.
Sam, we do have a specific question for you.
Yeah, I saw that and I answered it. I answered
it.
I'm not giving that away.
No, but what's the question? Say the question on stream itself.
They want a giveaway for one of Sam's aprons from his cooking streams.
Yeah, that's not happening.
And I'm going to add on. They probably want you to take off your apron on stream.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen either.
Then put it in the box.
Take it below it. Jokes aside, though, there was one thing that was said in your stream, Enko, that strung a bell with me, because you said that earlier with MM as well. I didn't quite get an occasion to react to it. It's you saying 500 gold at the beginning of the game is probably equivalent to around 5k gold now.
MM said that earlier. MM said that earlier. That was like an example.
Today, I'm challenging this. Actually, right now, I'm challenging.
It's probably more than that, actually.
It's so much more than that, because I have one memory, and actually 2 memories I'm going to share with you guys. Back when the game released, actually a little bit after the game released, it was somewhere around late October/November 2012. I was playing Guild Wars 2 with my best friend of the time, my boy Max, and he was like, "Yo, that's really annoying. I want to get into crafting, etc. I just don't have the gold at hand right now." He was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna buy some gems, convert them to gold, and with that gold, I'm gonna do mad stuff." So he got a 2k gem card. Actually, I think that was a 2k for 25 euros. Now we can play the guess games. You two, how much gold do you think he got from 25 euros? 2k gems. How much in gold? 2k gems. That's 12, so that won't be tracked in Spidey or anything. 2k gems. How much in gold?
Well, considering at the beginning of the game, a gem was like 6 copper. You could get 2,000 gems for like 30 silver at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a long
time. He got, I think, a little bit above 23 gold for 2k gems. That's how bad it is.
23 gold.
So I'm gonna tell you that 23 gold. 23 gold back then, like right now with 2k gems, how much gold are you getting? And you can do the math.
Well,
to see
I mean, that kind of depends on the currency that you're using for it. There's a reason why I don't use Mystic Coins for trading, because I consider that a bubble that will eventually pop once people. Because the Mystic Coins are valuable because people are
It's not
saying
a
Mystic
bubble,
Coins are valuable.
Enko. It's just the Baron that decided to raise the
No,
price.
I'm talking
It's not
Mystic
even a
Coins in
bubble.
general. The reason why it's used as a currency for most people is because people said we're going to use this as a currency because we wanted a gold dense item that we could trade easily. Okay, so the people that are gathering for the sake of gold, that is, I don't consider that stable because Mystic Coin usage in the game is actually relatively limited. Like the main purpose is to make legendaries and to make upgrades of certain types of things. There's not a lot of things for it. This is why I don't use them. I use Ectos. Ectos are used in a lot of things. Ectos are being created and destroyed all the time, constantly. Mystic Coins are not. So I would personally stick with gold or Ectos for the currency. So when we're talking about gems is linked to gold, but it's also linked to how many gems people are buying, like with actual money, right? So when we're talking about how much gold is when we're talking about 500 gold from the beginning game versus 5k gold now, we're more talking about purchasing power. So 500 gold back then, you can how much was a legendary back then?
I'm gonna give you a hint. Like legendaries,
Yeah, legendary
were not
back
actually...
then. I mean, depends because
it was just a skin back then. It was an exotic with a special skin.
No. Legendaries back then. The first time legendaries were recorded on the trading post, the average value at which they were listed at, like the average value you could buy them for, was around 8k gold.
Yeah. So
the first few legendaries that got listed were for 8k gold. However, back at release, somewhere in November 2012, you could get Dusk, my man, Dusk, for the modicum of 42 gold.
Do you know why that was, though? There was a bug there was a bug in the Mystic Force that somebody figured out. There was a recipe you could put in the Forge that you could guarantee getting a Dusk. 100% chance of getting a Dusk.
I don't recall that one.
It was
it
was not well advertised. It got fixed pretty quickly when something happened. I'm not gonna tell you guys.
I would say the first average, I would say, let's say a proper like price value on, not something that was still being figured out. I think the first legendaries were roughly traded at like around 800 to 1,000 gold. Actually, those were the first ones. And I'm talking about maybe 8 months after the game came out, not after they've had all their bugs and fixes. So let's say 2013, almost a year into the game, the average value legendary was trading for was 1,000 gold, 800. You could even flip legendaries at that point. It was still possible that you could flip a legendary weapon if you wanted to. And the precursors were all averaging around 100 to 300 gold. Not even, maybe. I think in those days Dusks were at around 150. Something around that range. I can't remember exact numbers, but something like that. So
I actually did research on that because I'm a boy like that. I have a spreadsheet for inflation study that I started this weekend that I want to work on, but I have the values taken from Spidey starting 2012, so I can tell you how much legendaries were exchanged for.
Is Spidey still running?
No, but like Silver imported there.
Yeah, I thought Spider's API history
Spidey's
taken by
completely
Silver.
busted. Yeah, Silver took it, so I'm using Silver, but I know the early data is Spidey's. So I made something about month and average value of items in each pool, and I made that for the stream today because I figured out it was interesting to do so. Look at that. December 2012. Average price for one tier 5 material was 1 silver. The average price for a tier 6 was 11 silver. The average value of a precursor was 150 gold.
Like orichalcum and stuff like that. Or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking like specific fine mats. When I say tier 5 and tier 6, I'm specific to the fine mats. Common materials I put into one pool together, like just the tier 5s and tier 6, and it was 1 silver average. So orichalcum barely took the average up. Legendaries were on average 5k gold. And ectoplasm were 30 silver already. Yes! Ectoplasm, my man. And actually, the reason why I made this is that everything, every single item in the game matches the price curve of ectoplasm.
Hey, why do you think I use ectos?
Like, I mean, Enko, I've known about you using ectos for that purpose for a very long time, but like, it feels good to validate it, like to validate that information. And see, there is some very interesting stuff because, as said, the price of legendaries quickly dropped. In March 2013, it was down to 1,700 gold on average. It plummeted to 1,500 gold in September of that same year. And then it picked up, and that was when I started making gold, like 2014. On average, 3,000 gold for a legendary, 700 gold for a precursor. That was like the good time. And ectos were at 45 silver on average. Best time to play the game.
That was
for
peak
real.
for anyone in the market, actually, those days.
That was actually peak. And I mean, tier 5 materials were on average above 3 silver.
I don't know. I still remember the days
we're on average above 50 silver, man. That was a crazy time.
I still remember the days when T6 Venoms were vendor value. So
yeah, I do remember that. Do you remember back at the start of the game when farming materials, you would make more gold vendoring whatever you got than trying to put it on the trading post?
I remember one of the first people that made a lot of gold in the game. It was because he discovered you could salvage discarded garments, which were selling for about 8 copper on the trading post, and you could get gossamer scraps out of them, which were selling for 60 copper. And yeah, he made a lot of gold doing that. That's actually partially
the Egg Baron? No, that was not the Egg Baron.
No, it was somebody else in game.
There were a few people who made a lot of gold at the start of the game. Like I remember some people, mostly on the EU side. There was like this guy Manizak who made a lot of gold forging. Like he shat precursors, so many of them, and he just sold that and made legendaries and sold.
Yeah,
there were a few people who made a lot of gold selling legendaries.
Forging.
Yeah, and there were a few people who made a good amount of gold selling legendaries as well at the start of the game. Like there were mostly War vs. War players that I knew and did stuff with. You would see them selling legendaries, and when they weren't, they were forging precursors because that it was worth it to forge precursors. You could make actual money from that. I made like you could also lose a lot of money, but
no, I actually know the average returns from the forge for myself.
But I mean, we're comparing the heaven of 2013 versus today. I mean, that's the average you have, Enko. Your average is so much to the point where it's not, for anyone that's not doing it, it's not worth it.
I know
it's only worth it because
I said before, like what I do, I'm not gambling when I'm rolling exotics in the forge anymore because I know what the return is. At least for my account, there's still that theory that different accounts have different rates. Which
I swear to God, I believe that.
If you have it's possible.
Second position in your account number, you're gonna get lucky.
Yeah, it's
all
possible.
The people I know with an 8 in second position, they get precursors all the time.
It's like I've had some people tell me
for account names and account numbers. I have so many alt accounts on which I put weird names just to try and roll for an 8 in second position, and I can't get it.
Yeah, so I actually think that there's probably it may be using your account ID converted into a binary thing, and it's using that as a modifier for your account. I actually think that's quite possible. They could be doing that to throw some additional RNG into it. The problem is how do you verify that theory? We can't even call it a theory right now because it's a hypothesis that we cannot test, which means it's not even a theory. It's speculation at this point. So how would you do that?
Test, I would a lot of accounts.
I would need somebody. I would need to make a second account that I did the exact same processes and got the same size sample as I do have on my main. Now I tried that for un-IDs. I did try that for un-IDs to see if there was a difference in exotic drop rate between 2 different accounts. Un-IDs so far they seem pretty much the same, even on different characters. But for forging, because obviously there are some precursors I get that I get at a higher rate than other ones. I would not be surprised if other accounts got other precursors at higher rates. And that could be based on some kind of tag that's on your account that's contributing to the RNG code for it. But the only way to be able to actually test that would be to actually start doing what I'm doing with exotics on another account until the sample size were the same and see what the results were. And then how would you actually break that by if we could actually break the RNG code. It's like if you have this account name and these character names, this will guarantee that you have Dust and Dawn's higher than any other ones, right? If we could actually figure out what that was, then it'd be useful. Right now, though, without any kind of testing like that, it's not useful.
You'd have to do that.
You'd
have to do that against what? Like, you'd have to do that against 100 people. Like, let's be honest. To even get any of a decent sample size, would have to be at least. I mean, like, let's say if you can get a group of 20, maybe that's more realistic than 100.
But the problem is that you cannot get. There's a reason why like other people have tried giving me their data for what their results were for the things I do. I don't use their stuff because I can't trust their data. I don't know how they generated it. So I'll use our data for its own separate spreadsheet just to like compare my results to somebody else's, but I will not use their data in my data. Any data that I get from other people,
you'd have to have like a sample. Like you'd have to have all the filters in each data set to be the same exact filters. So yeah, you definitely need to agree with everybody that what filter are we using for each item? How are we tracking each item's value? Because even the way that you value something compared to the other drop, that's going to change the data set. So you'd actually have to have a stable data set that everybody uses and contributes to.
But the problem with that is the amount of work that you would need to do to generate something like that to actually test that out. So I've rolled, how many weapons have I rolled on my account now? Weapons specifically, I have rolled 120,000 weapons now in the Forge. Okay, that's taken me 7 months. Now, if we got another account to do that same thing, it's going to take at least another 7 months if I stop doing it on this one. Because if we do it at the same time, we're going to start competing for the same resources. So how would we actually test it? We can't. That's the problem. So a lot of this is just tracking, is this profitable for me? And if somebody else comes up with a large enough sample size and we go through how they do it and we're like, okay, that we can actually compare the numbers then, and they have different results from the Forge on specific ones. Like for me, like right now, I get a legend every 91 rolls on staves, for instance. While with the Chosen, I get one every 164 rolls. Someone else might have a different one. But what I'm going to hazard a guess on though is the average forges per precursor overall is probably going to be roughly the same. But we might just have different precursors that are coming out. But the entire point of that conversation though, because it's pointless, because it's all speculative. It's not even a theory because we have no way to test and prove the hypothesis. So there's really no point in even talking about that. Which is why when you have certain people talk about, it's like, well, if you forge on certain characters at this time of the day on a Sylvari that had this kind of storyline, and this is how you have to do it the first Tuesday of every month. That kind of stuff, it's so ridiculous that it's pointless to track stuff like that. But there is somebody that keeps pushing that theory.
Let's not call out any names.
I'm not saying a name. I haven't said a name yet. I haven't said a name yet.
Like, at some point,
I know what you're talking about. But see, like, that's the thing, though. There's a few other people I've met who have, okay, maybe not to that extent of a theory of how you forge something like that at a certain time. But like I've had people who just genuinely just believe like it's really their account is lucky. It's really just that. Like, and I'm honestly I believe some of them because I mean like they literally pull precursors out of nowhere. Like I don't even know how much of a sample size they use, but it's large enough to the point where like they shouldn't be able to pull that many out that quickly. And it's not like it's inconsistent. It's done on a consistent basis. Those people don't even play now actually, so I don't know about how it would be now, but yeah, so it has to do something with your account RNG. Plus, yeah, at some point there's a data size that will get you your average rolls, and yeah, it's gonna be different for everybody.
I used to track that for rares and exos, just how many exos between each precursors, and I used to track that by exotype, like randoms or specific exos and stuff like that. It's just, even if you do that, there is no guarantee that it plays anything into it, because like when I used to do that, I would get almost the same rate on every two-handed precursor, almost the same rate, and I just figured out that there was probably nothing there, that we were just trying to find an excuse for how shitty RNG can hit us sometimes.
All right, so to kind of bring us up to speed speed a little bit because we've gone a lot of off topic. We kind of got sidetracked a little bit. So just to kind of wrap up, because we are at almost 2.5 hours into this podcast.
Hey, this thing can go on for hours if we wanted to.
I mean, you bring a bunch of barons on a podcast. What do you expect, right? So, all right, I want to kind of just briefly. Was it?
I was saying it's early in the day for Enko, but for me it's like 10 p.m. right now.
That's still early in the day. What are you talking about?
It's almost 1 a.m. for me, so
that's still early in the night. What are you talking about? I know tomorrow's
it's not early. No. All right, so to kind of bring us up to speed, so we've talked about, obviously we've welcomed you guys. We've talked about what got you into content creation, streaming, your interests in Guild Wars 2, what got you to be interested as a streamer for Guild Wars 2. We went briefly over the patch notes in January, which obviously were all three of us kind of agree it's a very big positive direction that's going within the game. And we've discussed a lot of the outlooks on some of the existing math syncs, which is also recent introductions into the game, math syncs that were long overdue, and of course another positive direction for the game. That's all the sidetracks that we've done, talking about forging, raiding, a couple more things that could be added to improve the system, plus the positives of the current systems in the game that we have. Just before we wrap up, though, I do want to briefly mention a few things about the End of Dragons expansion, because really, all of this is building towards an expansion. And of course, there's a lot of discussion about alliances, specializations, what new features can be implemented. But of course, this is the Barons podcast. This is the Barons episode itself. I would, my main question to you guys is, what is something that you want to see in the market that could shift or change something over time that the expansion can bring to the economy? And if any of you wants to start first, Enko or Sam, go ahead.
So let's say like the top 5 things I would want to see them change as far as the economy goes. Remove the 10K cap on the trading post. And the infusions there should be a way to account bind those. So that would be number 2. Like add infusions to the wardrobe, so they're taken out of the economy. Because right now when you trade them, they always remain tradable. So I could slot in a Connor, and then if I want to sell it, I could just remove it. So once an infusion enters the economy, it's always available in the economy. It doesn't get removed from the economy like precursors do. Like if you trade a precursor and then someone uses it, it's either account bound or it's gone. It can't be traded anymore. Infusions are not the case. Eventually, we're going to run into the heat death of that system, where there's so many Connors in the game and they never get taken out of. There's no quote unquote sync, so they never get bound. Right? I think if they added a wardrobe system, that could probably fix that. But that would also need to come along with them removing the TP cap, so that we actually have an in-game way to balance the prices on those. I would want them to create an ongoing sync for basic and fine materials, so that basic materials should never be approaching vendor value. If that's the case, then they need to adjust something. What else? I think those would be the top 3, like what I would want to see. Oh, Gen 3 legendaries. Okay. Yeah, let's make Gen 3 legendaries.
Yeah, Gen 3s.
And armory too. Yeah, give us an armory, please.
I mean, I was actually going to go with about the same ideas as Enko. I think removing the cap on the trading post would be a very good thing, although it would be a bit more annoying for some other instances of the game. It would still have its interest. On the matter of adding infusions to the wardrobe, for sure, 100%. However, one of the very good points of infusions in my mind is that you can stack them. Like I run around with 6 Aureliums at all time, because I like it be shiny, You should have the ability to bind an infusion effect, or actually you should have infusions should be account bound, but still stackable, right? That matters, especially for queen bees to annoy people around you. But if it's only an effect in the wardrobe, then it's bad. However, if it's account bound, then it's perfect, because it's going to remove infusions from the economy at a fantastic pace. That spells another way, with the increased trading post cap, to remove gold from the economy and prevent inflation. because the biggest gold sink in the game is trading post fees, 100%. Like, no matter how much gold you think you're like wasting at buying stuff from a vendor or something like this, the bulk of what gets gold out of the game is trading post fees. It's not you buying your thermocatalytic reagents at the NPC. So there is that. One more thing that I would like to see, well, of course, we have to do with currencies. I'd like for there to be a way not to like give an obsolescence to old currencies, but maybe fully convert old currencies into new ones, bar maybe the newest living story. So like have one NPC, and when living story gets replaced by a new one, the previous living story currency can be exchanged for by any previous currencies. So like that way, you never have obsolete stuff wasting away at space in your wallet or in your bank. You can always exchange it for like not the next best thing, but the previous best thing that you can spend for other stuff. So let's say a living story is there for like 2 months, you grind the hell out of it. In another 4 months, when 2 more living story will have come in, you can exchange for the one in between. I think that would be a very good way to manage the contents of our wallet, and that is long overdue.
Okay.
What about you, MM? You know?
About me, I again, K cap is definitely something I agree with. I kind of agree. I mean, your point is actually very interesting. What I'll get to. So yeah, my second point would be, besides the 10K cap, I do want to see more math sinks in the expansion that rather than introduction of new materials, which I'm sure we'll get anyway, but I'd rather they try to come up with more uses for the current mats that we have, because they are already plenty in the game to use. So if they have to introduce newer materials into the game because of the direction where we're heading, it's a new map. That's fine, but just don't overdo it. And I would say the infusion being account bound. So is it account bound and you could stack the effect, or do you have to account bound multiple infusions to be able to stack the multiple effect? Because that will be a difference.
Okay,
I think it should work exactly like a legendary. You account bind it, you can put it on any character you want, but you can only use it on a single character at a given time. Because then you need to remove it and give it to another character.
So this is how I think they should do it.
People, like you said, people said, yeah, you can go ahead in a bit. People said that, like you said, like you want to be able to stack multiple infusions. So that, again, which I think Enko will answer, the question is, should you account bound one infusion and then that effect can be multiplied regardless, or do you have to account bound multiple infusions to have multiple effects?
Yeah, so I've thought about this because this has been a suggestion I've had for a while. You account bound a chalk infusion. It unlocks that infusion skin in your wardrobe. What do you apply that skin to? It's not just to any infusion. Okay, you have to have so all the ore infusions, you throw those out. You have the account bound already infusions from fractals. You take those, you upgrade those into a legendary infusion. So I also want legendary infusion in the game. What legendary infusions can do is that you can change the stats on them at will, and you could apply skins from the wardrobe to it. And if you want 20 of those to have a full character setup, you need to make 20 infusions. And then once Armory comes out, those are now accessible on any of your characters. So if you have the chalk infusion unlocked and you have 4 legendary infusions created on your account, you equip all 4 of those to it, and you can apply the chalk infusion skin to those 4. Now, would it still follow the same rules for stacking, like they have to be different stats and stuff like that? I don't know. That's because I think the aura stacking effect is actually a bug. I don't think that was actually intended.
No, don't say that, Enko. You're breaking my heart. But like, okay, going back to what you're saying just then, the issue that I see with that is one with something that you said earlier. The problem with infusions is that they never get removed from the economy as they are right now. Yeah. They always in the economy. You can put them on your character, put them out of your character, put them back on the trading post, back onto exchange, whatever. The issue is with what you're doing right there, you only make a dent into the amount of infusion at a given time. Like the rate at which infusions are going to get generated will probably still at some point outpace the speed at which people are going to want to get them, because I only need a single check.
Well,
I only need a single William with your system.
Yeah,
I only need one. And right now I have like 2 checks, 2
You only
frosts,
need one.
2 crystals,
the alternative.
Money.
The alternative to this was
the
alternative to this was a mercy system for infusions. So infusions are a problem. I like, should there be items in this game that are 30, 40, 50,000 gold? Well, one right now, because of how the trading post set with the 10k gold cap, the Connor infusion is only worth 30k to people right now because people are willing to pay that amount. So I also think that an infusion, a fix to the infusion thing is that if you do chalk Garrett and you don't get a chalk infusion, you should get an item. Like an item that you could then bring to a vendor, and once you get enough of them, you could trade it in for a chalk infusion. That's a count bound.
So you basically want a pity counter.
Yeah, it's a mercy system.
It's a pity counter. Yeah,
it's a mercy system.
I mean,
You're
I don't
literally
think that.
These are two different
the
solutions.
general.
These are two different solutions. So, but this chalk that you can get from
No.
the vendor is a count bound. You can't trade it. It doesn't affect it.
No,
So
just make the infusion a count bound on equip. That's perfect.
yeah,
It serves all the purposes it wants
that
to
would
be.
actually solve everything. That would drive the
You're sure?
prices for Connors up though so much.
Casiano agrees
So
with that
easy.
statement.
No. If you want multiple stacked infusion, no. If you want an infusion effect to be stacked multiple times, you equip multiple infusions. No, I think that would be better. That would drive the prices even more than they are if they were just simply account bound. Then you can just stack the effect multiple times. No. If you want to stack the effect multiple times, you want 5 infusions of liquid Aurelium stack effect. Well, you got to account bound 5 liquid Aureliums.
Yeah, they can actually do that
That's my
too,
thing.
where you have
That's
to
perfect.
every time you account bound one, it goes like the number available ticks up. So you have like if you account bound 5 Aureliums, then you have 5 Aurelium charges that you can then apply to it. And then if you remove that effect from something, then that charge goes back up. Whenever you use it, it goes down by 1. When you remove it from an infusion, it goes up by 1. They can do that too. So if you wanted to stack 7 of them, you would need to have actually gotten 7 Aureliums at one point. And you can only use up to 7. They could do that too. I think that would also be acceptable. So it would still drive people to wanting to buy more. But I still think aura stacking is a bug.
So it's like
Online
storing.
is like
So you're basically storing infusions in an account bound vault, which kind of goes the same way. It's just that you're adding an extra step, which I think has value. Like right now, we're reaching a very good point. Is that infusions that I have, I can just store for 1 charge of that specific infusion. So like I have 6 Aureliums, I put them all in 6 Aurelium infusion charges. Then you add a second point, and that point is legendary infusions. That's a good way to get a material sink, a new one, to get a good way of draining some items from the economy. And then you can just apply your charges to a legendary infusion. But
I like
charges
that. I actually
together.
like that. I like the charge.
Like
idea.
that's the mix between it, and I think that would be the best bet because you're reducing the number of available infusions on the market. Good. And second point, you create a new sink. That is also very good because, as we said earlier, that's the tactic of the reward system at Arena right now. It's a good one. It's going a good way. Like the game right now, the economy feels better than a year ago.
Yeah, it does. Well, I don't even think we have any economists on staff now that came on recently. So speaking of account binding stuff like that, this would all come into play also with Legendary Armory. If Legendary Infusion, it would be added to the Legendary Armory. I really hope that they include legendary upgrades in that too, runes and sigils. And hey, just a heads up, guys, if they do that, I think control symbols are going to be a problem. Control symbols are already going to be they're already a problem right now with how many they're generated compared to the other symbols. But somebody did mention also for infusions that all they want is a way to disable infusions. I agree. Anti-stoop mode. Yeah. I agree. There should be
just like player instruments.
Yeah, there should be a way to turn them off if you don't want to see them from other people, because there are some people that have eye cancer combinations that they intentionally did because they wanted to annoy people. I should be able to turn them off.
Agreed. Like, I mean, I remember my boy Leto Candy, walking around with his 8 phospholuminescence.
Oh my gosh,
that's a painful one. But like, what I mean with that is that you could just have that into the player model options. Like, you can have the team models and PvP or resort, etc. Just taking one thing that disables all auras.
I'm gonna be right back. I gotta take these things called pills.
All
My
right.
man. Okay, that's good. Take care.
Okay,
I'll be
so
right back.
I guess those
I
would
was
be
gonna
our.
make a horrible joke about like a rail of cocaine or something, but that would be indicative.
Yeah, he comes back and it's just like white stuff. It's like okay, man. We know why you're not spending money on Guild Wars 2 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of what we talked about is like honestly has been like wish list items that we would want them to add to the game. Like we talked about
Definitely.
raid rewards, leaderboards, fractal rewards, like some kind of in-game incentive for people to get better. Like right now we're talking about what we want to see with End of Dragons. I think a lot of these are good suggestions that I'm also looking at it from a perspective of it's like, what do I think should be relatively easy for ANET to do? Like asking for wing 8. Okay, I mean all the raiders want another wing, right? But I think that's something that just needs to come with the expansion. But as far as quality of life things, like adding legendary, once the army comes out, if they implement that correctly, adding legendary infusions, like they already have the system set up in game. I don't think that should be that hard to implement. They already have a leaderboard system set up in game. I don't think that should be that hard to implement for other things. They already have the achievements counting up for other achievements. I don't think that'd be that hard to implement on the rest of the achievements. So it's more standard. Now,
And
granted, whoever coded the defeat the Veil Guardian achievement back then, maybe they did it in a completely non-standard way, and they can't do it because it might break the game. That's completely possible too. I don't know the internal codes for it, but because they've done it for other achievements, I would imagine it shouldn't be that hard. Now, maybe it should be the time that they come in and it's like, okay, we're going to rewrite the code for this to make it standard for our new current way of doing it. I do that all the time with my spreadsheets and a lot of my other stuff. I'll refactor them to get them to all be compliant with the same kind of standard. Imagine they did that with dungeons, right? They redid them so you had to the player it was exactly the same, but it was redesigned in a way that they could maintain them, and, like internal in the game code, and we could get more dungeon paths and stuff like that, right? Like we got the other 3 paths of COE, for instance, that we were supposed to have. So again, some of the things I'm saying that I think are relatively easy to implement. I'm not talking about the things that I think would be too hard. The leaderboard thing, like armory, like Legendary Armory. I think there's a really easy way to implement Legendary Armory. Give us a vendor, you turn in your Legendary Armor, it unlocks it, and then you could get as many copies of that armor as you want that you can then throw on any character. Bam, Legendary Armory done. They already do that with other things.
I think that's also what they've been aiming. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that, as you said earlier, a lot of the code is legacy. Like, you've had so many people go in and go out of the studio over the lifetime of Guild Wars 2, that the stuff that was there at the start isn't even manageable anymore. Do you recall when they tried and fix the Wing 3 raid bugs, that they actually managed to kill half of the working mechanics in the ruined city of Ara? Because I remember that. That was very annoying. Like I couldn't complete it anymore.
I remember that.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Like the code at Aeronet was made by a master Italian pasta chef. It's spaghetti, with a lot of it. Some devs say that they don't understand how stuff was made before. Like the original team that worked on dungeons, they're all gone. Like, right now, you can't change anything in dungeons unless you like learn it from the get-go, spend hours or days looking at the code, or just try and redo it from scratch.
Yeah, at some
and that's
point,
the problem with many areas of the game.
I think at some point they should, but then if they're going to do the entire game to like refactor that into a current standardized way of coding it, at that point maybe they should just imagine let's go to DirectX 12 also.
I mean, yeah, but that was actually something I had mentioned in the previous podcast with Muckluck, is that if they did start a long time ago, if they just started maybe let's say in 2020, right, recoding or bringing the game up to speed or upgrading the engine, I mean, it would be a year out from now. They would have at least had a year of the game done. I'm sure the code takes more than a year probably at this point to figure out, but if they had started way earlier, they'd actually be able to get it done. I know they're afraid of breaking something, but that doesn't mean they don't have the resources to maybe try and work it out and then slowly implement these changes,
Do that in
rather
an
than do
internal
something
build.
huge.
Yeah, do that in internal build. So if you break it, you break the internal build, not the live game.
Exactly. So,
So
I'm sure that it
use
just takes
standard development
time. But,
processes.
it's just time, really, but it's time that'd be well worth it for the game. I mean, a huge engine overhaul would probably add another 10 years on the game. I mean, because right now this expansion will come in, and I believe it will add some life into Guild Wars 2 for another 3 years. But an engine overhaul that add another 10 years on top. Sounds like
Enko,
they need to release the expansion, hoping it goes well, host the private server, and rework the engine. I kind of what Enko's saying. They could really do it internally first, and if it breaks internally, it doesn't really actually affect the actual game, because then they can fix it first.
I believe you remember it because I believe you were part of it. Raid testing.
I wasn't part of any testing.
You were part of it. Yeah.
No, I was never part of any testing.
No, you weren't. Oh shit! Because I thought Elodie was in there.
No, we were not. D&T was.
Never mind then. Okay, yeah, you don't say. I remember them. I was next to them. Just like the way testing is done, they completely have the means to run a separate game build on which they can sandbox every little thing out. They have the means to do that. They have the means. No, like they have the means to do that within the structure of our internet. But do they have the means to staff the amount of people needed to maintain that, to try the changes, to test them out? Like most of the bugs in the raids were detected by like players such as you or me, trying our hardest to break the shit out of the raids. Like raid testing was basically a group of like 10 plus people from a guild thrown into raids with the idea, try them, give feedback, try and break stuff. We fix.
Yeah.
So they have the means to do that, but the amount of people they would need to staff just to make sure that not just one area, one tiny area of the game being raised, but the entirety of the game works is huge. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of like team effort. They would probably need to recruit some other people, whereas we know that they've been laying off. Like it just doesn't work out together. Like their current scope with what they can do with the game, the kind of revenue they can get, the streams throughout advertisement, maybe Twitch drops or something, all they can do and all they're doing doesn't match what they would need to do for the game to be in a perfect state. So they simply don't have the capacity to do it.
I have said for a long time, my stance has not changed on this in the last probably 4 years. ANET has two major problems: community relations, and two would be their release schedule. So my proposed release schedule would be you're on a 4-month cycle. Month 1, new raid wing. Month 2, open world or storyline change, like new episode, right? Month 3, new fractal. Month 4, World World PvP balance or balance patch, PvP World World patch. So rotate the maps in PvP. Rotate World World Borderlands, which would require us to have more than 3 Borderlands. And then month 5, you go back to new raid wing, and then you do that. So the raid team would have 4 months to develop a raid wing between each one. The fractal team would have something like that. Whatever the cycle would be, that's just an example. But a more schedule of how often they release stuff, release products, release content. And if you were doing it that way, if you only did raids, you get a new raid wing every 4 months. If you only did the living story episodes, you get a new one every 4 months. If you only played PvP, you get an update every 4 months. But we would know there would be a general cycle. If you did everything, you get new content every month. And as far as for community relations, why doesn't ANET support Twitch streamers? Like they're ANET partners. What do you actually get, Sam? What do you get for being an ANET partner? Explain it to the stream. What do you get for being an ANET partner?
I'm not allowed to disclose the entirety of the perks and limits of the partner program, as I am under a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, see, the fact that we don't even know what being an ANET partner means
Okay,
after
but
8 years, it's a problem.
I think I could say one of the obvious things. Obviously, this is no secret, right? Because we see it by a lot of ANET partners. You guys do get some sort of gems from ANET, right?
Exactly. So what
I mean,
can
that's not like that's public
I'm
knowledge. Everyone knows the gems come from Ain't.
exactly. I'm gonna
So
limit what I'm gonna tell you guys to what is publicly available or like available if you search a little bit on Reddit. So basically, as a partner for Guild Wars 2, you're a partner to a studio. This means you're entering a work like business-oriented relationship. As a content creator, I am expected to make content for them. Content that is going to show some aspects of the game, content that is going to maybe try and get people interested in the game, or maybe explain an area of it, much unlike they themselves would inside the actual game. That is important. Then, since this is a business relation, what I get back from them is, of course, exposure. That is a major thing we get. We can get retweeted, and their account does have traction on Twitter. We can get blog posts. We can get some support for events, such as the Raiding League is getting right now. We're getting some gems, we're getting shoutouts, we're getting that kind of stuff. And finally, we're getting gems for ourselves. That is indeed correct. These are gems that we get and can give away. Not everybody gives them away. Like, there are many more partners than you would believe, and some of them never do give away. Some of them keep the gems for themselves. And that is like, you get gems, and it's either you use them to make content or you give them away. Like, there is no rule on these gems. And on the matter of being expected to make content for Guild Wars, etc., like, it has been a strategy from Ironet to rely sometimes on the partner program to try and convey some player interest or enthusiasm towards a new release, towards maybe sometimes a non-release or something. Like, for instance, when it was the Guild Wars 1 birthday, we could have made like some Guild Wars 1 related videos, or some what from Guild Wars is presenting Guild Wars 2 videos, stuff like that, just to garner interest around what they want to showcase right now. So we're basically working with them.
Yeah, so I guess
when
I talk about community relations, so like, one, it's like, do we even have a community manager anymore? Because I think Regina's gone, right?
We have multiple.
I was gonna say, I'm sure there is someone,
Yeah.
but that's usually I'm sure there's someone responsible for the ANET program, right? Like, there's someone.
Yeah. So why doesn't the community know who that is? So if there's a glaring bug in the game, do you know how this stuff usually gets communicated in it right now? Right now, in my imagination, because I don't actually know how this works, I think if somebody tells Teapot, and then Teapot tells his contacts, and then it somehow makes its way into the development team so that they realize there's a problem. Like, reports. Bug reports in game, reporting players.
That's actually a good point.
Does any of that actually have any effect? So, for the people that pay attention to Efficient or to Guild Wars 2 Exchange and for Overflow, we have a certain player that's been scamming people recently quite a bit. He's been scamming people for like 3 or 4 years now. His excuse was, ANET hasn't banned me, so what I'm doing is okay. He's been reported multiple times. We all know who this guy is. And ANET doesn't do anything about it. It's gotten to the point where most people go to like, does reporting players even do anything? Why should I bother reporting players for scamming if nothing's going to happen? So who's supposed to be managing this stuff at ANET? So when I say the community relations, it's like, Sam, you as an ANET partner, I would expected that you would have a Discord with them, a Discord channel where that you guys have access to talking to them. And it's not just like, oh crap, I know the guy's in-game name, let me go message him in game. So like, you guys there's actually a standard way of conning these guys. So if there's problems like this in game, attention can be drawn to it. That's what a community manager is supposed to be for. And it feels like that nothing happened.
That's where you're hitting the limit. I'm just going to interrupt you because the limit is very, very steep, very violent. So I'm just going to drop it there. We are in a business relationship where we make content for them, and they support us in the making of our content. That's where it ends. At some point, there was someone who impersonated me to scam people. I told that to community management, and nothing came out of it. Why? Because if there is such an issue, I'm supposed, just like any player, to message support.
But what do we do when support doesn't do anything?
Very shitty support, because support is like it's not even hosted at Ironet. It's some other company somewhere around the world that handles tickets. It's ticket handling. It's not even people who actually play the game, know the game in and out, realize what being impersonated can mean as a content creator, or realize what a scammer scamming people all the time is really doing. Like, these people have nothing to do with the game. Like, the support team is completely out of our.
I'm going to throw up a challenge to Twitch chat on all 3 of our streams. Everyone's listening right now. If somebody can tell me the name of the community manager and provide a link proving that that person is a community manager, I will give you a legendary right now. Can anybody provide that? And provide a link to Anet to say that this is a community manager.
Because I actually know everyone. So,
see, here's the problem. Nobody knows who this is. Nobody knows who the community manager is. That's what I was saying. There's a community relationships issue with Anet. Like, they don't want to advertise the game. They want us to be the mouthpiece for the game and us advertise it. But then they don't want to support the people who advertise it. We make people on Twitch. We're advertising. Like, that's essentially what Twitch is doing. We're advertising their game for them. No support. No Twitch drops. Nothing. Right? They do nothing for people that stream on Twitch. Teapot's probably the only one that's able to get any traction with them on trying to get things because he runs a lot of events. And he is probably the face of community. No, Teapot could be hired as the community manager and things would be running just the way they are now because he essentially is our community manager right now.
No, the issue that you need to realize with is that the company that is ArenaNet is running at different speeds with different area of themselves. Like, for instance, when it comes to creating events and trying to like bring like outside growth into their business, they act as a small indie business from a local area of an American city. They're going to partner with burger joints, tea shops, whatever. However, when it comes to trying to get something done with them, when it comes to trying to get a ticket going up, when it comes to trying to fix a specific area of this game, unless you know a person who is going to do it, or unless you know a contact towards a person who is going to manage it, or unless someone out there at their place cares, you're going to actually run into a wall because they act like any extremely well-established, long-living company where it's all about protocol. You ask Grunt 1, who's going to tell Grunt 1 plus 1, who's going to tell Grunt Manager 1, who's going to tell Grunt Supervisor 1, etc., etc. And then it gets lost. If it's not important enough, or if there's not enough reports, or if it doesn't bring them any value in doing it, it's not going to be done. Remember that time Chris Cleary logged into the account of a hacker, suicided him in Divinity's Reach, and deleted the account after? This kind of people doesn't work at ArenaNet anymore.
Yeah, and you know what happened after that video? Hackers were scared to do anything for a while because they were worried that they were going to get their house deleted. But now, if people are not afraid of scamming people, they're not afraid of botting PvP, they're not afraid of using teleport access, nothing happens.
Because they have become aware that everything in the support system is handled by a ticket operator somewhere in an aisle, and maybe in South Asia. I don't know. Like that might sound quite racist, and I don't mean to do it. It's just maybe it's run like in North Africa or something. I have no idea. But when you exchange with these people, I do not believe they are like people working in a good office in the United States.
Well, customer support is what you're talking about. That's what support tickets get to. That's different than community relations. So customer support's like, oh, you have a problem with your account. Oh, you can't log in. Okay, we'll help you with that kind of stuff. They have a checklist they go through. Like, that kind of stuff's understandable. If they get tickets,
when you're a player for hacking, that's exactly the same team you get directed to. That's what I'm saying.
If you submit a ticket that talks about somebody else's account, okay, they can't do anything about that. But what they should be doing is referring that ticket to the security team, which what Chris clearly used to be in charge of, but he's no longer there. There should be a team that's handling these things, and we're actually not seeing any kind of report. Like, there's no
actually someone
there's no idea about
linked
that kind of
a post. Who is Stefan Presti?
Oh,
Deception just linked someone.
Steph, yeah. Okay, on Twitter, his account is Stefan with an E. He is like content marketing strategist. He does content marketing is he's basically going to give a direction.
That's not a community relations manager
strategy. That's not community relationships. Like what you need to realize also is that community relationships, the way it's being done, it's kind of handled by people who are community driven at ArenaNet. Like the Twitter account, for instance, is managed by multiple people. They sign who they are at the end of the tweets, like =RB.
Yeah,
That's
this content marketing strategist is not a community relations manager. So I'm
Yeah,
going to throw out
exactly.
Raid
That's
Shadow
the question.
Legends, for
Like,
instance,
They
right?
don't have
They
an
had an
exact.
actual community manager. Her name was Cirilla. She's no longer in that position now. She just changed jobs like 3 days ago. Like MM, when you got sponsored by Polarium, you got contacted by somebody that was probably part of the community relations team. Sam, were you ever sponsored by them? I don't know, but MM, I know you were. Muck has been sponsored by them. Souls has been sponsored by them. You guys got contacted by a community relations team that's responsible for interacting with the community to promote the game, to support the players, to take questions from the community, to get feedback from the community, and be able to provide that back to the company so that they understand, like, hey, what problems are people having with the game? What's good? What's running well? What's running bad? They don't do any of that with ANET.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like a long argument that's been here in the game since the start of the game. We're not like, it's not like we're saying something new or this has just recently happened. This has been maybe one of their more consistent issues that they've had to try to fix, right? So
I'm looking at my Twitch chat. So far, everyone's like, oh, well, maybe this person, maybe this person. We should all know who that person is.
Yeah, I mean, that was Gale Gray, though. I mean, not to say that there wasn't a person, but for a long time, it was Gale Gray. There was actually a firm position that was held by someone. So,
and then they banned frogs on the official Guild Wars channel.
I would just say, I guess maybe since Gale Gray, there hasn't been that official person anymore, because it was actually her for a long time.
Beyond that, you need to realize that there have been a few crises at Guild Wars 2. The biggest of which was the one involving Doroy. The whole issue with I think her name was Jessica Price. Yeah. When stuff like that
happened, was involved in that.
Yeah, that's what triggered that entire.
So basically, I'm gonna sum it up.
Trigger that?
Yeah, I'm gonna sum it up so that, to make it very simple. Jessica Price, who was a lead writer on Living Story, made a long Twitter post explaining how she started writing everything. And why it was especially hard in terms of character development, because the hero starting Path of Fire was finally given a face in the game. Like before, it was just your avatar, and then it became that new character, the commander of the pact, etc. Right? And she was explaining how hard it was to work on all of that. And then Laura, at some points, replies to one of her tweets, and he's like, oh, speaking about that question, I'm quite curious about it, because I would have actually gone about it this way, because I think it is a very good way to maintain character development, much like you did. Like, it was actually rather close to what she said. And she went like, can you look at this guy mansplaining in my tweets? For something along these lines. And she called him some unforgivable words.
So here's the thing with Doroy, when she's just like, who is this guy, right? Oh, take a look at this. Doroy has an NPC named after him in game because he was like that impactful to ANET. Like, they made an NPC for him.
Because he's a huge lore person, actually. He worked a lot on the lore. So his opinion, because he, at the time, and still is, a partner of the studio, talking about the one area he's been making content for years, got shafted, well, not shafted, but kind of insulted on social media. And that's the kind of thing, when it happens on a Friday and the studio closes on the weekend, that just blows up. It was so massive that PewDiePie talked about it. I mean, that's quite massive on the internet, kind of. This kind of thing makes you restructure quite hard. What I think happened is that the part of community management, etc., got shifted into the like NCSoft, because NCSoft owns Arena. NCSoft owns the studio. And like they can decide if the studio actually fucks up on some part, being like, okay, you don't have these people anymore, we handle that for you.
You know, and I understand, like, it's getting late for you guys. Maybe we should table this for another episode. We could have an entire discussion on
this is an entire podcast
ArenaNet community relations, I think. Maybe that should be the topic of the next time, Buck. You just, or with anybody, MM. It's like, have a podcast, bring in different content creators. You know, we could have more than 3 people. We have more than 4 people, and just talk community relations with ArenaNet, and then edit that video and then send that in to ANET, and it's like, here's the issue we have, guys.
That's a future. Hey, that's a future podcast. I might even have to bring Teapot in on that because he has basically.
You could let Teapot run that one. He probably has the most to say about that because he is the de facto community manager right now. He really is.
The unofficial one, I would say. Yeah, unofficially, he is probably the best community relations manager.
He could get hired if he got hired by ArenaNet. If he got hired by ANET to do that job and just kept doing what he was doing now, it'd be great.
That's actually it. But there's nothing he needs to change if he gets hired by ANET. Like what he does is basically a role or position that you would do for a company if you're a community relations. So I don't know, man. Does he have to move to Seattle to do that? Can he just do it from where he is in the UK?
He could do it from where he is.
I probably.
I mean, a few content creators have actually made it into the ArenaNet office, of which Wooden Potatoes, and as far as I know, The Royer.
Like, honestly, if I was willing to live in Washington, if they had the job opening to handle the in-game economy or to at least influence it, like I would be probably doing that. Except
they had that job opening back in summer 20.
Yeah, the other problem is that it doesn't pay me enough compared to my my current job.
I mean,
it was up to me. I was able to maybe allocate some of my family's funds. I would just buy the company. Could do that. Actually do that, but no, I can't really. Plus, I can.
All right, but yeah, community relations. Let's save that for another stream.
Buy it. What is that for you? Just give up on like 20 of your Lambos. You still have 100. Just buy it. It's fine. You got this.
It's not my money though. It's family money. Like I can't make a big decision like that yet. Not yet. No, but in the future.
In the words of my ancestor, at some point you're going to be the last in line for succession. Then it's your money. My ancestors weren't very kind people.
But all right. I also know people in my stream are getting antsy about the giveaway. Since I know we're supposed to be wrapping up, I'm going to go ahead and pull that now, guys.
All right. Yeah. Let's wrap up. All right. So before we wrap up, I like to do this thing where I've done with Muckluck and hopefully with you guys in the future episodes. So we've talked about a lot of points, everything. We've even went into a whole different tangent with ANET and their community relations. We've discussed a lot. Like this video is going to take a long while to upload on YouTube. So to let you guys know, by the way, before we close up, rather than do the Liquid Aurelium giveaway on Twitch on my stream, I'm probably going to make the giveaway attached to this video when I upload it on YouTube. So probably tomorrow I'll have the podcast uploaded and I'll make the Liquid Aurelium giveaway on that. So just put your comment, just comment your account ID, whatever, and then maybe some interesting topics you liked in this podcast and your opinions. But before we wrap up the podcast, I want to ask you guys, because now this is really the times for you guys, Enko and Sam. The floor is yours, guys. If there's anything interesting going on your channels, any content, any other thing that you're working towards, you'd like to let your viewers know, and the viewers here on all three podcast streams, the floor is yours, guys. Whatever's going on with your streams right now, let it rip. All right. If Enko, you want to go first, and it's Sam, you can go after him.
Okay, so right now I'm working on some stuff with Win, so I can't stream that stuff. So my stream schedule has been kind of sporadic also because I'm also getting deployed here in a few months. So I won't be streaming here in about probably a month and a half, guys. So other than that, though, for Guild Wars 2, like we're still gonna be streaming raids, we're still gonna be streaming that kind of stuff. I'm working on a tool for build template swapping that works pretty well so far. There's some enhancements I want to do to that, but once the army comes out, I'll work on all my characters. Right now, it only works on legendary gear, and then because if you're using ascending gear, I have to do some different things with it, but it works kind of. But yeah, other than that, I'm just doing raids right now. We're still going to be doing trading post streams. We have a weekly legendary giveaway if we get enough channel points contributed to the weekly challenges. Hopefully, we'll be doing more of these podcasts. Maybe we can do another one like right before I leave or something like that. But yeah, other than that, I've just been, as I said earlier, just been raiding and trading. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I do hope we can probably do another Aaron's episode. Sam, what about you? Anything going going on recently in your stream? Content that's upcoming?
Well, actually, I've been trying to get back into streaming, which is mostly sponsored due to the French curfew. 'Cause I can't go out, I can't do stuff, so I might as well stream. So that's it on that end. I'm trying to stream some more PvE content with talks, so like easy PvE content. On the matter of YouTube, I have quite a few projects running on the side. The main one is, of course, to continue my gold making guides. Like I still have a few of them to do, alongside spreadsheets. That I keep going with them. The second thing I am trying to do is also to build some more general economy knowledge. So that's going to be inflation study that I want to publish. Also some more generic stories about the Guild Wars 2 economy and how it changed. That's another thing. And finally, you guys saw me, take a little jab at a fellow YouTube person. I want to actually make a bit more content that way. Like Enko mentioned a scammer, like a history of like known scammers or stuff like that, just to remind people that they exist, they're around, they can fuck you up, and you need to pay attention to that. So also that on the side, and maybe just as a bonus, a little bit of a talk about Guild Wars 2 PvE history, because like that side of the game is kind of dying. The raiding league is getting a lot of traction, and I think that people would actually enjoy maybe knowing a little bit more about records, the guilds, the story behind them, what they were doing, etc. Like LOD has such a long history. DNT is completely dead, but had one as well. There are so many guilds who have such interesting stories that deserve to be talked about. Of course, I would interview Enko about LOD if he will allow me. So yeah, that's it, I guess.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, this has honestly been fun conversation with you guys. As always, we can always talk forever. I mean, I was planning for a 2-hour podcast. We went 3 hours and a half, by the way.
Hey,
just to let you know.
Did not tell us the 2 hours was the plan in any of your messages.
Oh, listen, I gave some bullet points, and I was hoping we'd cover the bullet points in 2 hours. But I should have known, because every time the three of us sit together, we always go to different topics, and we always related back. But I should have known. Honestly though, it's been fun conversation. I think a lot of the points that we discussed were very interesting, not even just related to the points that we were supposed to talk about, but also other points that we added on top of those as well. So it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can do another episode at some point, definitely before you leave, Enko. So maybe we schedule the next one soon, TM, within a few weeks from now, before you leave. So aside from that, that's my end. I don't know if you're going to be continuing your stream, Enko, if you're ending the stream. On my end, I gotta probably go. I don't know about Sam, but it is late for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably keep going for a
bit.
bit.
10:30. I haven't had dinner, so I'll start with that. So yeah, like there's a lot of stuff to do. And I totally believed it was an hour and a half at the start, so we are 2 hours late.
Oh, I was actually expecting this to be like 5 hours or something like that.
The 5 hours. I thought the evening, my man.
Once MM said, "Oh, he was expecting this to be 2 hours," I'm thinking to myself, well, he also said he wanted us to meet 15 minutes early, and I suggested an hour. It actually took an hour. I'm like, well, that was 4 times. So, if he was really thinking 2 hours, now we're thinking 8 hours, then 4 times, right?
It was actually good we set this up an hour before. I mean, we had to get all the things in place. The cameras weren't working. Had to send the files. Yeah, I think we actually ended up using the full hour. So aside from that though, yeah, it is late. I mean, I aimed for 2 hours. Hopefully 2.5 was like my leeway. But then there was just too many interesting topics. We couldn't stop it. So aside from that though, yeah, I'm out from here. Appreciate you guys for coming into the second episode. Hopefully I keep this going with a couple more guests. I do have a few guests lined up for the next few episodes, but definitely we got to get one more before you leave, Enko. So maybe we save one episode for the Barons again. Maybe we can bring a fourth person in on this, so that'd be a nice twist. So from that, that's it from my end. Enko, I'll probably host you then if you're staying for a bit.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate you, Sam, as well. Thank you for coming in. And
me, man.
Thank you. Enko 63 is your thing, right?
Yeah,
63?
yeah.
All right. Close the stream on my end as well. Do a /host Enko.
All right,
So
guys.
for those that are wondering, I'll do the liquid beryllium infusion instead on the YouTube video of this podcast. So just wait until I upload this tomorrow. Liquid beryllium, comment your account ID, all that information, and put your opinions, what you'd like to see from Aina regarding all the topics we covered.
All right, I'm gonna start converting this back into my normal setup. So let's popping these guys off.
All right, guys. I'm completely off. Take care. Great fun.